Okay, it is 9:01. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to this third annual National Academic Advising Seminar that is hosted by the South African Academic Advising Association, better known as ELETSA in the community. I do want to extend a warm word of welcome to all our presenters. We do have a few participants still joining, but I want to reassure everyone that the session is being recorded. It will be available. The full day's seminar will be available in due course on our YouTube channel. If you're not already following ELETSA on the YouTube channel, please click and subscribe and follow ELETSA on the YouTube channel and catch up with all the exciting and best practices and scholarly work that is being shared across the country. For those of you that are joining us for the first time, I am Gugu, the president of the National Academic Advising Association, and I also am affiliated to the University of the Free State, and I head up the Advising Access and Success focus area within the Center for Teaching and Learning. I am joined here this morning by colleagues literally from the country and across the continents, across the globe. So I do hope that today is enriching and is insightful as we intended it to be. I want to extend a word of gratitude and also a word of welcome to the Vice President of ELETSA, Dr. Razia Musa, as well as Mrs. Zandile Rakudu, who is the executive member of ELETSA. Both of these colleagues have had tireless times preparing for today, and I most sincerely hope, just as the presenters, you will enjoy today's session. The ELETSA work has stemmed from what was initially a collaborative grant proposal that was linked to the Siyaphumelela work. For those of you whose institutions have not been part of Siyaphumelela is a We Succeed project that has been funded by the Kresge Foundation, a US-based foundation that was committed to ensuring that student success is propelled across the South African country. And through the work that was done in Siyaphumelela, there was the write-up of a collaborative grant proposal through the UCDP, the DHET-funded program. And through that, we managed to secure funding, and 7 institutions who were part of the inception of the ELETSA work decided to embark on this work to build and establish a community. We have been going strong for the last 5-6 years. We are into our second round of the collaborative grant, and we are now 14 institutions, with the other 12 South African institutions holding allied membership to ELETSA and the Global Academic Advising Association. We do hope that all 26 universities in the next 3-4 years will be part of the global community officially and would have received seed funding to establish academic advising at their various institutions. I want to commend the 7 inceptual institutions for their hard work that has gone into establishing ELETSA, and of course the 14 institutions currently part of the collaborative grant for their tireless hours that they spend in establishing and growing the community in South Africa. The work that we will be sharing today comes from a varied number of institutions. We will hear voices, we will listen to presentations that has been prepared by colleagues that have been doing the work, and they will be sharing best practices, but also sharing their scholarly nuances into the work that they have been doing. I can safely say the ecosystem of academic advising in the country is steadily growing, and I want to send a word of gratitude to the Department of Higher Education and Training for being so gracious in funding our community so that we can have such opportunities to share best practices, but also enable student success, retention, and on-time graduation at our various institutions. Today, we will hear a keynote presentation delivered by our colleague from Georgia State University, Dr. Alison Cohon Brown, and she will be talking to us from a perspective from one of the leading institutions when it comes to academic advising. And I know some of the colleagues in this session have paid a visit to Georgia State University, but today we will hear from not only a best practice, but also a scholarly lens in the US, what has been taking place. In terms of acknowledging people that have joined us on the platform today, I would like to acknowledge the presence of our DHEAD colleagues who have made the collaborative grant funding possible, colleagues from the 26 public universities in South Africa. You are all most welcomed. I've also like to welcome Dr. Alison Colhorn Brown from the Georgia State University. We are joined by colleagues from the National Academic Advising Association, which is the global academic advising community. We will listen to Dr. Ling a bit later, who will tell us a bit about the global community, of which all 26 of our universities hold membership to. So we are part of that global community to share best practices, and more importantly, hear how we can be part of the active community of academic advisors globally. We're also joined by colleagues from our UK, from the United Kingdom. They are known as the UCAT. They are the United Kingdom Advising and Tutorial Association. Dave and your colleagues, you are welcome with us this morning. We really hope that this will forge stronger relations with the UK community in order for the South African community and the UK community, like we hold with the US community, to broaden our perspectives, but also collaborate and strengthen the work that we're doing at our institutions. I would like to welcome our technical team on the back end, who will also be supporting us. And thank you to all the presenters for tirelessly jotting down your thoughts and ideas and reflections, but also being willing to share your perspectives into the space. I also want to acknowledge the presence of Professor Franco Stradom, who is the Senior Director and also brainchild owner of the work that we are doing, and he leads the work of student engagement nationally. Everyone is really, really welcome here this morning with us. And I really hope that as we transition from the morning into the afternoon, you will listen to all the presentations, but more importantly, a seed will be planted for the work that you are doing at your institution. Just some house rules. We are live, so we are recording the session. So we do have the Q&A. For those that don't really frequent on MS Teams, but rather on Zoom and other platforms, there is the raise hand emoji on your screen, that at any point as you go through the presentations, you would like to interact with the presenters, you may do so. When we acknowledge and give a round of applause, you may click on the react icon on your screen, and the third icon is the applause. So I am illustrating that on my profile right now, so you can gladly do that, and you can raise your hand also by clicking on that emoticon, and you will be acknowledged. We do have a day that is packed with presentations. We will have 3 main rooms. We will have this main room. We will have the keynote and some of the presentations take place here. And then we do have some breakaway rooms where concurrent presentations will be taking place. You have already selected the concurrent presentations you would like to participate in. So you will be segued into that room. And at the end of that presentation, you'll be brought back into the main room, depending on where we are in the program. And I really hope that you will enjoy all of the presentations. I'm going to ask our colleagues to flight for us the program, so that again, at a glance, we can look at what is happening in the program. We do ask that all participants remain muted. Only presenters share their camera and their mic when they are due on the platform, on the stage. And then once they are done, the session chair will facilitate and take questions and answers for everyone. So the program looks in the form of, we will start off with a radio talk show that will be hosted by our colleagues, and we will hear some reflections of best practice that is happening at the different institutions, and that will then be followed by the concurrent sessions. We will take some comfort breaks in between. So for those that are sitting in nippy corners of the country, especially Cape Town, we are thinking about you and all the rain that is really currently in your midst, you will be able to really quickly make a coffee dash for those that need coffee to just re-energize themselves to get through the day. And we will also be taking a break, a lunch break between 12 and 1, so that everyone can take a bit of a break. That is the program at a glance, colleagues, that I've already spoken to. You will note, as I've already alluded, we do have session chairs in each presentation. We will then have a presentation delivered by colleagues from the Northwest University just before we go into the lunch break. That 11:30 presentation will take place in the main room, and then we will then be ushered into lunch by Mrs. Zandile Rakudu. And then we'll listen to Dr. Ling from the Global Academic Advising Association. And one of my most anticipated components of the program is listening to our ethical standards that have been drafted by colleagues that form part of a subcommittee that has been established through ELETSA. And Dr. Razia will for us introduce the ethical standards for academic advising in the South African context. So we really, really have a lot to look forward to. And then we'll end off the day with the keynote presentation titled Personalizing Success. And there we will listen to Dr. Ellison talking to us about using data and analytics to improve student outcomes. And I know for many of us that are part of the Siyaphumelela community and many other academic advising and student success communities, we really look forward to hearing how data and analytics can speak better into our community and how we best support the students. Once again, colleagues, before I rant and ramble on too long, I will not hold us back. We are at 9:13. Our first component of the program will be the radio talk show that will be hosted and facilitated by Dr. Razia Musa and colleagues. And I do hope you will sincerely enjoy that. And you will hear back from me just after the talk radio show. Dr. Musa, over to you and the colleagues for the radio show.
So, Itu, my co-host, you know, we've hosted so many episodes of the Morning View, but I tell you, today's episode will top them all.
No, Razia, no ways. What do you mean? Why is that?
So today, for the first time, we will get an opportunity to time travel and discuss something that has some people in panic mode and others very excited. I mean, with AI advancing so fast, the future of advising, as with many other practices, is in question, right? So I really can't wait to hear what our guests think about this.
Sure, Razia. No, speaking of which, actually, I think today's topic might be really heated up, actually. So I think, let me just very quickly go. Let me go prepare my script. What's wrong, Razia?
No, Itu, do you know that we live? We live.
Now? Are we live now?
Yeah, we live.
Wait, producer, are we on air now? Oh my goodness. Okay, no, then I'll have to just wing it. I was just about to go and prepare my script, but I guess that's okay. Good morning to our wonderful viewers and listeners. Again and again, as you know, every morning, every day, this is your girl, Itu. Welcome to your favorite talk show, The Morning View with Itu and Razia. As you know, this is the only platform where we get to discuss critical issues that affect the advising space in the most fun and relaxed way. So please, listeners, buckle up and relax and just wait to have loads and lots of fun while we tackle critical issues in the advising space. So, but before we get into it, so as you know that every house has its own rules, right? But our rules are very, very simple. We only have one simple rule, and that is we expect everyone to talk a lot. So please, feel free to say more. Don't hold anything back. We want to hear it all. Please post all your comments, all your thoughts, all your questions in the chat. And my co-host, Razia, will make sure that all your chats and your comments and your questions come through into the talk show. So please feel free. But also, I think this morning, I was just driving on my way to studio, right? And I was just telling myself, because I didn't have enough time last night, so I told myself that I'm actually going to prepare the script right before the talk show today. But yes, as you saw, I think I sort of ran out of time, and boom, time was up, and as Raja was just saying that, I was already live before I knew it. So I'm actually saddened by that, but I'm also very happy because I think what happened this morning sort of ties in with what we're going to share in today's topic. Because sometimes you believe that you still have enough time, right, to prepare for something, then boom, the future is already there. So by the end of today's talk show, we hope that all our listeners will realize how fast time moves, and as a result, they need to start taking the necessary steps to prepare for the future, particularly in the advising space. So today in studio, we have a very wonderful lineup of guests. We have Ms. Itume Tsipun from the University of the Free State. She is an academic advisor. We have Albert Mukwena, also from the University of the Free State. So I think the University of Free State was very gracious in giving us all their very wonderful workers. But we also have somebody also from the University of the Witwatersrand by the name of Ms. Sandra Maape. She's also an academic advisor. So please, ladies and gentlemen, to all of these wonderful guests, whom I refer to as heroes and heroines, I mean the doctors of the deaf, the tertiary institutions, not by titles, of course, but by their life-saving powers that they possess. Please, ladies and gentlemen, for those that have the powers to show a round of applause, and those who have powers for the microphones, can I please get a po 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 po? No. This is not how we do it on this talk show. I'm gonna need just a little bit of more information, a little bit of more oomph into this, right? So I'm gonna count down in the countdown of 3, right? And I'm gonna need a very oomph, a very powerful po 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 po, right? 3, 2, 1. Can I get a po 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 po? Thank you. That's how we do it on the show. Thank you so much. Yes, I think now we're gonna get into our guests. I'm so excited about today's show, actually. So I think I'll start with you, Albert. If you can just maybe prepare your mic there. Please, Albert, please just let us know, who is Albert? Just to introduce yourself, just so we can get to know you a little bit more. And also, outside of advising, what does Albert do?
Right. Good morning. Thank you so much to be on the show. Thank you, my wonderful host. Good morning, listeners. My name is Albert Mukwena. I'm from the University of the Free State on the Kwekwe campus. My current work now is I'm an academic advisor. So I'm responsible for 2 faculties, which is Faculty of Education and Natural and Agricultural Sciences. So my job is very interesting because I love people. I got the chance to work with more students on a daily basis. Basically, academic advising, it's a holistic support for students where we ensure that we have all the resources that are available for students to ensure that at the end of the day, they do graduate and also be successfully. And also this includes also a point of referrals, where our scope is limited. We refer students to specific offices on campus where they can be helped much more further. So my host, I'm not sure, was I that much brief, or you want me to continue? Thank you.
No, definitely. No, you've answered my question, but I had a second question for you, Albert. So you've explained what you do, right? But you haven't told me, because also it's very important also just to get to know you personally now, Albert, right? For our audience also just connect with you on a personal level as well. What does Albert do outside of advising? What can we find you doing if you're not in the office, Albert?
Wow, that's a tricky one, but I'll try to attempt it. Yeah. So basically, if I'm not at work, I'm one person who likes to watch movies. Unfortunately, I'm saying we don't have cinema, but I do watch online movies and also equip myself with artificial intelligence, because I'm one person who likes to use data as a driven point to inform a decision going forward. Yeah, basically in a nutshell, that's me.
Oh wow, Albert. Okay. That's very interesting. So you're an AI guy, right? All right.
Yes,
so thank you
so
so much, Albert. Okay, awesome. No, thank you so much. Now also a similar sort of question now to Kitumesi. Kitumesi, please just tell us a bit more about yourself. And also around what Albert also shared in terms of what will we find you doing if you're not in the office, Kitumesi?
Hi again, Edu, and thank you for having us on the show. A wonderful good morning to the listeners as well. And so you're going to refer to me a lot as Kitumete, but to be very honest, the first thing I think you always hear from me or you'll learn about me is the fact that I like being referred to as Kate. I always just say it's short and sweet, just like me. So, so
That's
yeah.
true. That's true.
Yeah, so basically, just in a nutshell, I really am an introvert. A lot of people will find that very hard to believe, but I'm an introvert. In an essence, that really grew up with a lot of confidence challenges, but somehow I found myself on on this journey of not just advising, but on a very purpose-driven journey that instills me to use my voice, which is something that I do a lot. So, in my spare time or outside of work, I have my own podcast, Unpacked with Kate. And it's really just centered on themes related, but not limited to mental wellness, faith, personal and professional development. I enjoy reading with the little free time that I do have, but when I can grab a book, I really just enjoy reading, watching series. I also do have to mention that I love a good glass of wine, and that's just me in a nutshell. Thank you,
Well,
Edu.
well, thank you so much, Kate. You know, Kate, when you're speaking, you're actually reminding me of one of our guests, in the previous sessions that we've had, right? And
Mm,
this guest shared with us that because he's an aeronautical engineer by profession, and he was just sharing with us on how he started working as an academic advisor, but then because of financial reasons, he moved out of academic advising into industry. And then when he got there, he was not fulfilled. Like he was not happy. The money was there definitely. I mean, he was very excited about the pay that he was getting that side. But then he had to come back because he just felt like that pay was just not for him. So he wanted to come back. So, and I've actually seen this kind of trend in a lot of advisors, right? A lot of advisors would say that they feel like the work that they're doing is like a calling of some sort, right? They get a lot of fulfillment from
mm.
it. So just to ask also, Kitume, personally, what does academic advising mean to you personally?
Whew. I think without really having or responding with a loaded response, academic advising, like you're saying to me, really means impact. It really means being on a purpose-driven journey, and just allowing that, just making it easier for a student to get to a point where they need to get to. I think in my journey, what I've really learned about advising is that success will look different for every student. So the definition of success and based on where the student comes from, their background, where they want to go, and where they're meant to be will be success for them. And that's how I'll have to, as an advisor and as a support for them, just assist in ensuring that they get to that level of success or what success looks like for them.
Wow, wow, that is so profound, Kate. Thank you so much. I just like
Thank you,
putting people on
E.T.
the spot.
You
I just
definitely
thought that
did
it
that.
had to be. Thank you so much, Kate. So Sandra, um, directing this question to you as well. If you could just tell us a little bit about who Sandra is, and also when you're out of your office clothes, what would we find Sandra doing outside her office clothes? Sandra.
So Itu, thank you. I want to start with a poo 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 poo. I think it's great. I think it's yes, back at you. So I think it's really great, and thank you for having us on the show. I think it's rare when we get to express ourselves as advisors because often we're so focused on students. So I think it's a great platform for us to just basically engage and just yeah, the spotlight to shine on some of the people in the background doing immense work. I think in terms of what I do when I'm not at the office, you would find me dancing. Not that I can dance, but I just love music. I think my colleagues know this very well. I often express and feel in music, and there's often a song or a theme that sort of captivating how I'm feeling in the moment, and so that's what you would find me doing is often I would be dancing with I've got two sons, or I'm with my nieces, and we just play music. Afrobeat is my favorite genre. Oh, I like different types of music depending on my mood. And yeah, essentially that's what you would find me doing, or taking a walk in nature, because I also enjoy that immensely. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Sandra. Often like the line managers of advisors would always tell them about self-care. You need to practice self-care as an advisor because you have a lot going on when you get to campus and all of that. So I'm just very excited to hear that actually you do make the Albert and Sandra, you guys do actually do things outside of the work. It's not just about work. So it seems that you've got all that self-care that they talk about right on check. So no, that is awesome. Now just getting a little bit into the more critical, questions, because I think we just started with the light-hearted ones just so our listeners could also just kind of try get to know you a bit more and connect with you as well. I think I'll start with Kitumezi. I'm sorry to say Kitumezi. I'll start with Kate. So Kate, so we do understand that there's various challenges, right, faced by students across the board, right? And advising is a tool which tries to address some of these challenges. So, Kate, seeing that we just come out of COVID, which was so unexpected, if you could just tell us about how your advising practice is currently responding to higher challenges, Kate. Oh, Kate, sorry.
It's okay, you do. Really, just go at this point. Just go with what comes out easier out of your mouth. It's really okay. But
Okay.
just to answer your question, really, like you said, COVID was very unexpected. And as unexpected as it was definitely scary. And not just for the students, but even for us. A lot of us really wondered, what does this mean? And how are we now going to continue doing the work that we do, especially because when looking at a lot of research and where advising comes from, it's always been a very contact and physical experience with our students. So we really um, reflecting on my own practice, I can say that one thing COVID-19 taught me is that it really takes a village. In all of that confusion and in all of that, scariness and frustration, I guess we really needed to hold hands more than ever, and not just as a global or national community, but even just looking at the ways in which my colleagues and I, just within the central office in UFA at the UFS, how we responded to COVID and supporting students was ensuring that we do it together as a village. And to ensure that we enhance student success, we needed to really include every individual that plays that significant role in a student's journey. So I think how that has involved implemented or really assisted with how I'm responding to higher education challenges currently is it's really emphasized my intention with building those relationships with the colleagues from all the different offices, whether it's from the academic offices, whether or departments, whether it's from the support or even with the administration side of the institutions. We need to really build those relationships, and I think I've become really more intentional about doing that, and really just understanding the work that they do and how the work that I do also impacts on where a student journey is supposed to go. And just to also add to that is realizing the importance of the informational component of advising,
Oh,
and how it's really really become important to ensure that we also are very intentional. I'm also very intentional about equipping students with accurate and the relevant information that they need to really navigate the university environment and the institution as a whole, because when I look at little things that really impact on students not understanding why they find themselves in the financial challenges or constraints that they end up having, being confused about career exploration or career opportunities, and just, small, not small, but um, issues or challenges that also come in with what accommodation they can get that's affordable. You really see that a lot of that, or the misinformation is at the core of
oh.
having those challenges. So it's really really important that I understand that my way of equipping the students or empowering them is by giving them that relevant and very accurate information. Yeah, I hope that answers your question.
Definitely. Thank you so much, Kate. Thank you so much. And I believe that probably, but I'll just check with Sandra as well because she's from a different institution. I believe she's going to relate to a lot of what you're saying. Sandra, do you relate to what Kate is saying? And also, if maybe we can have your input on that as well.
So yes, I definitely think I can relate to what Kate is talking to, and I think for me it echoes the point of human connections. Because for me, and I think I veer slightly to, COVID-19 for me, yes, it had devastating impacts in terms of and how it affected families and people lost loved ones, and we can't negate that. But for me, it was such a powerful tool because it was a moment where the whole world needed to stop and think. And so for me, it was a very wonderful tool. Just like, as much as people don't want to talk about death and etc., it's one of those moments in life that allows us to stop and to reflect, and it allowed us to question certain things in terms of our education system. Does this thing need to be here? Are the systems we're using actually helping students? So for me, COVID-19 was actually a wonderful moment to reflect on those things. However, the main issues, which I do think is the main challenge in terms of higher education, which COVID-19 then worsened some of those challenges because they were never actually addressed, as issues to do with access and the issues to do with isolation. So historically, this has always been an issue. And I think this is what Kate was speaking to just now. It's an issue of access, whether it's socioeconomic access, whether it's access to first-gen students. There's access issues because, it really brought to the fore that students don't enter varsity all at the same place. So yes, academically they've got the mark, but in terms of where they need to be, maybe emotionally, in terms of resilience, or just being ready for varsity, not everyone is. I think so the same thing in terms of colleagues and COVID worsened those, if there were already those issues, it really brought them to the fore. And those are the kind of issues you're seeing, that those who are marginalized were further marginalized during COVID. Those students who never felt like they were part of the system, because education systems, you question sometimes, were they built for human success? Was it more about optimization? Was it built to allow students to thrive in their education? And so for me, COVID was a chance to really shed light on some of these things underlying some of our institutions, and for us to be more active. And I think for me, how that's, sort of shaped my advising practice is to really directly target and deal those things. So how do we build community? How do we focus, instead of just doing things related to academics and you need to pass, but focusing more on human beings and the person behind the degree? And so many of the programs or many of the initiatives my colleagues and I do have to do with the person in the degree, and how do we allow this person to thrive, and etc. And as well, dealing directly with issues of access, because that's what the legacy of the history of this country has left us with, but also COVID has really brought those issues to the fore.
Sure. No, thank you so much. I think that is very profound, Sandra. I don't know if there's anyone from the chat, any of our listeners, if you want to share anything, please remember to put your comments, your questions in the chat. If it's just I agree with Sandra, just say that. If it's I agree with Kate, just please do share. I think I told you the rule of this house is just to talk a lot, say more, do not hold anything back. Thank you so much, Sandra. I think Sandra is raising a very critical issue of access. She's saying that mostly that is what stood out for her from COVID, from the COVID duration. I don't know if Albert, you just want to agree with the both of them, or also you have something else to add on to that, Albert, in terms of your practice.
Okay, thank you, Itu. I fully agree with what they're saying, especially since I'm working on the rural campus. I think access was one of the most issues that we have experienced with our students, because remember when we moved to online, so most of our students, we use the historic data that indicated that majority, it was, I think, around 80% of our students, they didn't have compatible devices that can be able to engage online. So which is really posed a challenge. And also look at the geographical area of the students where they're coming from. It was a big difficulty, but luckily the institution was there to ensure that they do support and ensure that those students do get the devices that they can be able to continue with teaching and learning. So also, I think most of the advisors, what they did is that they had to ensure that they the approach shift to online, and also ensuring that the process and methodology is still the same as if it was the face-to-face, even though it was online. Because remember, by that time, most of the students felt isolated during that COVID, as they are not part of the community of the university. So for me, it was a very challenging, but I think the institutions, they did their own best to ensure that they foster that learning experience throughout that difficult journey. Thank you.
Sure. I think what you're saying also, Albert, that's very profound. Thank you so much. I think it ties back into what Sandra and Kitimet were saying. I mean, Kitimet was saying she saw that definitely, I think it definitely takes a village, right? So I think her main take out from that period was that the importance of trying to build relationships with all the other, staff across the campus. And I think Sandra now talked about the issue of access. And then now you are also saying this a similar thing also, to say that even the students who had geographical constraints, I think during that time, the institution needed to find ways to ensure that support is still reached out to these students, even with their geographical constraints. Thank you so much for that, Albert. I don't know if either we have anything from the chat. Do we have anything that you want to share from the chat so that our listeners know that they are included in this talk show as well? Razia?
Yes, thank you, Itu. I think that we're getting some lively chat. And so what I want to share with you is that people are really grabbing onto this whole thing about human connections and the international community. And then I think that Google made a very important point. She said that it's time for us now to do away with this boutique approach or boutique approaches. We need to scale everything up so that we reach all of our students. And I think that that's very powerful.
Definitely. Oh wow. Gugu, do you wanna come through and maybe just share if your mic is on, Gugu, just to go a little bit further with that, to explain a bit more?
Itu, I'm loving the reflections of the colleagues. It is really, really profound work, and it really speaks to my heart. I think for me, again, COVID and what, latching on to what Albert spoke to just now, is really COVID really reminded us that we should leave no student behind. And, it was a buzzword at the time that no student should be left behind, or no staff member should be left behind, which spoke to the sense and the need for the community. So for me, the golden thread is it really brought us together, closer together, got us understanding each other, but more importantly, keeping the student at the center of it all. And Elizabeth also spoke to it there that, building the community, the home turning into a learning space was really what it became. And, finding ourselves post-COVID, we've moved beyond the isolation, but the community also looks different. So I think for us as the community supporting the students, we also need to reflect on what that looks like and what that means looking into the future. And Mr. AI that spoke also, could perhaps share some insight in what are some of the upcoming trends that we're seeing in the AI space that can enable still the high tech and the high touch, because we'll never be able to lose sight of the touch components that our practice comes with.
Sure. No, thank you so much, and I'm hoping that we're actually going to get into that AI part. I think it's also very a lot of interest for myself as well, so I'm hoping that we do get into that part. But thank you so much for sharing, Raja. I'm not sure if we have anything else that you want to share from the chat. Is there anything critical that you wanted to share?
No, I think that there's a question there that maybe we can deal with at the end. So the question is, how did the participants incorporate theories of advising and access during COVID?
Oh, nice. Okay. So maybe we can just ask one of our guests here. So maybe I'll throw this question at Kate, maybe because your name is just easier to call out. Kate, can you throw this question at you? I think the question is from, who's the question from, Razia? If you can repeat the question for Kate, please.
So Kate, the question is, how did you incorporate theories of advising and access during COVID?
Thank you for the question, Razia. And I think when I reflect just from the top of my head, with just how, how we really tried to incorporate or attempted to really incorporate the theories that we use. A lot of our work is really grounded in theory, definitely. Student transition theories and student development theories, and just understanding the journey and where the student was at the time. And I think with the campaign that we specifically ran from the UFS institution itself, where we didn't want to leave any student behind, it was very, very important that we treat every student as an individual and not just a student number, but looking at the human inside and really just understanding what challenges or what their environment outside of the institution looked like, whether it was issues of isolation that they were experiencing. So a very prominent approach that we used from advising theories was the proactive intrusive approach, because we needed to really preempt and really look at the data that we saw, from the surveys that and from the research that we run in our offices, to try and establish what challenges and what support students are going to present, and how we can support them in ensuring that they do not feel isolated and they do feel like they are part of the institution still. So it was very, very important that we are proactive and that we go right to where the student is. And we also utilize the developmental approach to advising, and not just say a student, came up and said they had a challenge with this today, and you sorted it out today, and you're not going to walk the journey with the student. So it was important that we check in a lot with the students, that you are an accountability partner for them, that they do not feel like they were alone, because they were already feeling so isolated from the institution and not having that sense of belonging that they would normally or usually experience when they were, physically on campus. So I hope that answers the question, E2. Yeah.
Definitely. I think even over, right? I thank you so much, Kate. I think
Thank you.
you've answered, you've done that question a lot of justice. So I think one thing you've mentioned that's very critical there is talking about looking at the person behind the degree, right? That's what I picked up from that answer, and I think that's very critical. Thank you so much, Kate. I think moving on, right? I saw a question at Sandra, right? Sandra, if we gave you an opportunity to time travel into 2043, right? So that's like 20 years from now, right? If you can maybe just paint a picture for us, what does the higher education look like, Sandra? How is learning taking place? Are there students in the halls, in the lecture halls? Are there assessments being taken? Does the structure of the university still exist? Or has it been turned maybe into a monument or heritage site? Do we have any students on campus or even staff members on campus? How does this higher education look like, Sandra, for you in 2043? If you can just imagine it and maybe paint a picture for us, Sandra.
Thank you too. I think for me it looks very, as it's something you describe sounds very dystopian, but for me, I think the future of higher education looks very hopeful. So in my imaginary, like a very Afrofuturistic, because I'm into Afrofuturism. So in my imaginary of this future, one thing is that yes, institutions are still happening, but they've been changed, right? So talking about, if you think about the issues that are highlighted, some of these issues have been, caused education to be restructured in the future, focusing more on human systems, so human innovation. So for me, innovation isn't just about high tech, it's about how do we optimize systems and create systems where people can thrive. So one of my personal belief systems that every person, is a creature of sorts on the inside. So how do we create habitats for that person, each and every student to thrive? So if I'm a lion, what kind of habitat do I need to learn? And so for me, the future looks like that. It's, the systems of education have evolved so much. So for instance, many things have been digitized. So all the admin sort of roles, those have been digitized, allowing and freeing up more space, for students to actually be, out there in the field. So they don't have lectures. All those lectures are automated. The lectures are run by, AI. And so what's happening is they're actually spending most of their time, in practice. So if they're academics or there's the people that lecture them, they're on site actually learning hands-on skills. So from first year level, you are basically undergoing apprenticeship. And what's being molded here is not just your mind, but the person, because you need to be a particular character or person in terms of admission and etc. what's happening there is that there's already a whole system that you go through where people actually need to assess your level of maturity, and readiness beyond just your cognition for certain disciplines and fields. So you go into an apprenticeship, and so if you're studying to be a medical doctor, you will start already from first year spending your time, in a hospital and engaging clients and etc. And then you could basically structure your learning. So there isn't like a set time for lectures. You can access the sort of content or textbook material you need at your own time, but most of your time is spent on site. Most of your time is spent, being in communities. Most of your time is spent, almost like you're going through an initiation of sorts. So for me, that's what higher education looks like. And the lecturers themselves are also like that. They're almost like, I'm also into karate and martial arts. They're almost like a sensei of sorts. So they're not just like academic who's knowledgeable in terms of like content and theory, but it's someone who's matured. They've reached some sort of maturation in terms of their own personal development. And so they're then taking these new a good example is Star Wars, that now taking these new students and taking them through a journey of maturation. So it's more forming the person, because I do believe that, if people are healthy, then we have healthy societies. And so the systems of education have been restructured. We still do have libraries, but you can access it anywhere digitally. You can put on your VR goggles and you can access the library and walk through the library, and there's still spaces for connecting, but many of the systems have been overturned, to allow that. And so people in admin are more involved in strategic planning, the different things that take up a lot of our time. All those things have been automated, and AI is basically running that system. And most of the systems, it's more innovation towards human development. That's what higher education looks like for me in the future.
Oh, wow, Sandra. Thank you so much. So you're saying that so lectures have been now automated, right? And you talked about apprenticeship for the first year. I mean, you said from first year they'll already be, doing apprenticeship, as you're saying, and you said a lot of things would be digitized. Thank you so much, Sandra, for sharing that. I don't know if Deepen, you have a similar sort of view on how 2043 would be looking like. If maybe you can share also, if you have a similar view, then you can just add a few points. But if it's totally different, maybe let's hear from your side as well, Deepen.
Thank you so much, Itu. I agree a whole lot with Sandra. So I'm really just going to add one or two sentences at this point. I feel like I'm your first thought when you think of asking a question. But I think while I was also just doing a lot of reading and trying to prepare, and just looking at, getting an idea of what will look like 20 years from now in terms of higher education institutions, is I read a very what I thought was a significant quote that stood out for me. And it said, if there's anything that will be significantly different 20 years from now, it's that people won't go to school for knowledge, but they will most likely go to school for an experience that they won't be able to get online. So I'm just going to leave it at that. Yeah.
Wow. Oh, no. Okay. Thank you so much, Kate. Albert, I don't know if you have something different as well. Are you seeing 2043 different in terms of the higher education landscape? How is it looking like for you? Is it similar to Kate and Sandra's view?
I think for me, it does, but I totally believe that if automation can be put in place, it can really do a great work, but we still need advisors and some of the human interaction with students as well. So we can't solely rely on automation for everything that we need to do. But what I think it's Sandra that spoke about, that if we can have a good system that can speak to other departments. Let's say, for example, we have this wonderful machine that can speak to different support services on campus. So that can help us to build a student's profile. And that thing can be used as a data point that our system can be able to learn from it, and also give us a prediction to say if the students came for this and this and this, there's a possibility that student might need certain type of intervention. Some of the interventions, like maybe sharing resources, can be automated in that space already, so that it's just a click away for students just to give a response on the system to say, okay, you're suffering, maybe you dealing with this. This is maybe a time management course that can help you to be able to manage your time much more effectively. But that those ones, appointments that needs one-on-one interaction, and also where I think there was a question where how do we apply the theory in advising, where you need to apply certain theories in advising when you spoke to students. Like 3IG, sorry, it's one of the theories that we used for students to be able to feel comfortable. You start with this, the students, so that make them feel more comfortable. Such things, I don't think they can be automated, because remember, a system is a system, but a human interaction is something that allows students to be more connected to advisor and also feel like somebody's looking after them after that session going forward. So automation is good for me, but I think we should not put everything as automated. We still need advisors in future, as well as academics. I think also COVID taught us that there are some of the subjects or modules or courses that are very difficult to be taught online. But I think also the systems can be used like Blackboard, because you already have that at our disposal. Use the recording videos, asynchronous videos, for students to be able to go back and listen and play for that they can be able to grasp the content. In my conclusion, my host is that I think we need to also to be able to identify what works now and what is not working, for us to be able to predict the future that we want to be at. And also we need to align or streamline our practices at this moment and the policies to ensure a holistic support for all students on campus. And lastly, I think also the system that can be able to allow us to assess a wide variety of students who are at risk and be able to notify them much earlier, so that they can get help that they need to be able to get on track and be able to be successful at the end. And I think Google's talk about scaling up and uplifting. I think that is one of the biggest things that's going to be that we need, especially a support from the Department of Higher Education, the DHED, to inject more money in advising, so that can be possible, so that the scaling up can be possible, and also we are able to reach every student and also be able to ensure that they succeed at the end. Thank you.
Sure. Wow. Thank you so much. Actually, you answered the question I was going to ask you next, right? In terms of if you think that whether you think advising is still going to be needed, or whether we're going to need advisors in this 2043 higher education landscape, right? But I think the question that I'll ask now is, Albert, speaking about all these things, does this or everything that you just mentioned, the 2043 higher education landscape, as an advisor, does it excite you or does it scare you?
Come again, too? Sorry, I didn't hear it that well.
Okay. I'll just repeat now. So I'm saying, Albert, with what you've just shared now, in terms of how the 2043 higher education landscape looks like, so I'm asking, as an advisor, does it scare you or does it excite you?
I think from my own perspective view, it does excite me, but I think also resources need to be there to equip advisors to be able to handle that by when we reach that point. Not most of us who are well equipped with the technology on how to operate it, but I think if that platform can be created for us to be uplifted as well, to ensure how do we use this system more effectively to ensure that we as advisors deal with most of the student issues more effectively. I think that will be the best way, because data helps advisors to deal with issues much more effectively in that way. Because remember, as I've said, that we can talk about other things and we might assume as individuals, but if you go down and drill down into a data, if you did your own data mining very well, it can inform you what is the way forward, things that you need to change going forward, what needs to be automated, and which ones cannot be based on the dynamics of the data that you get from. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Albert, for that. Because what I've realized, Albert, is that when all these technological advancements, right, take place, oftentimes the human that are actually supposed to be the ones that are dealing or working with these technological advancements are almost always left behind. So, and especially now, I think the rapid advancement, I think I'm foreseeing that there's going to be some challenges that come with this rapid advancement. But I think what you say could be a solution, to this. If advisors and students are also prepared well in advance, then, with this rapid advancement of technological things, then, maybe, they'll go hand in hand and they'll work for the best for both advisors and students. I think thank you so much, Albert, for that. But I'm going to take it back to Sandra again. I understand that Albert has shared his input on this, but Sandra, after you have, contextualized, what the 2043 higher education landscape looks like for you, do you think that, an advisor is still needed? And also, if so, what does this advising look like? How is it taking place?
So for me, no. So I don't think advisors will be needed in its current form. No. So I think the role that we are playing now is heavily focused on academics and passing. And I think we need to question what success means. Because for me, success is not a mark. I think success is to what extent are we helping form a valuable member of society. So in its current form, no, I do think that advising will become redundant unless education stays the same. However, if, so advising responds to higher education. So for me, it has to do more in terms of how you're defining higher education and what you believe higher education should be doing. So for me, I believe that higher education should be producing a valuable member of society. So students are struggling right now, not because there's necessarily something wrong with the students and etc., but because the education system is not speaking in terms of what the needs a student has. It's more focused on how do we create someone who can work in the economy. It's very wrapped in capitalism. And I think for me, if we change the center and the focus of that, you even begin to question why should someone be given 4 years to finish a degree? There's the whole logic of capitalism and creating like a production line of people to work and replace the economy. But if our logic changed, education would also change. So if our focus was we want to create a society that's that's equitable, we want to create a more egalitarian society. We want to create a society that's not so based on capitalism, maybe. And then a higher education would also therefore change. And so for me, if at all I see a role for advisors in the future, and it's not I'm saying we must automate everything, but it doesn't, the current system as it stands is not working because students are not coping. I mean, just look at some of the high suicide rates certain fields have. For me, that's a cry for help. So the current system is not working, and I think COVID really demonstrated that. And so my hope is that in the future, it's more focused on the person. We begin with people, the people first, and then from that, everything sort of grows from that. So the people first, and the education system and the economy and the way we're living all sort of responds to that. So there has to be balance, and I think it's about equilibrium, and therefore advising also needs to fit within that. So for me, the future I see advisors playing is more in the realm of life coaching. So my job wouldn't be to talk about timetable management, because I do believe you wouldn't be struggling with that if you want in a race to finish. If it was about, as I said, this vision I have where it's building the person, it's more about apprenticeship. So think of sitting with a gogo, like using indigenous knowledge systems, and the goal is to build the person. The goal of education is actually to build a person. Yes, they've got the technical competence, that's a very important thing, but it's more human systems. When we've got good human systems, society thrives, and those things we can't automate. So for me, in my vision, it's like, these people sitting with a go-go, and the academic is more like the go-go, the person who's lived longer, the person who's mature, and they can then shape and mold this person to then be a valuable member of society. So they'll be playing more the role of a life coach. You'll go to an advisor who's this sensei, who's gone on this journey, they've gone through their own struggles, and they're teaching you life. You're talking life. You're going to an advisor to talk about, I don't know what to do, what discipline or what should I study? And that's the engagement you would have. They would help people better be fitted into different disciplines. And so even things like people struggling with studies, I don't know if people struggle, because for instance, I talked about, I think we're all different animals. And so if someone, an advisor, helps you figure out, oh, Itu, you're actually an elephant, and therefore you can thrive, and even the education system will be so flexible because it's not so rigid. You can actually tailor make a curriculum or tailor make a situation that can work for you. So you can choose what time you can go to class, half the time you can go and work. So it would deal with things like socioeconomic access as well. You could work, you could start a business, you could do lots of other things, because right now the students time is occupied solely by academics. They have nothing, no time to do anything else. But in this parallel, future, I imagine you've got so much time, and then you can still study. You can still improve your mind if if you wanted. But it allows you to engage life. It allows you to open a business. It allows you to go and become an active member of society. So in my mind, yes, there will be a need for advisors, more to focus on enhancing human systems, but not in its current form. I feel like that won't be a need in the future. Thank you.
Sure. No, Sandra, you know when after like somebody does something and then we say you've dropped a mic, you've definitely dropped the mic. I don't know, Sandra. Maybe we can just have a round of applause from all our listeners just for that, Sandra. I think you've touched on a very critical point there. I don't know, Razia, I think we're sort of running out of time. I don't know if you have any comments in the chat, so that we can open up the last segment where we interact now with the listeners. I think our guests, but I did say, guys, the lineup that we have today, the guests that we have today, I tell you, Razia, do we have anything from the chat today?
Yes, so Itu, I think that we have a lot in the chat. I think that one of the things that was raised in the chat also had to do with the skills that are required from advisors. So Mujesi came and said, what changes can be expected in the skills and competencies required for academic advisors to effectively support students in the future? And I think that that's a very, very good question for us to be answering and to be asking, especially at this moment.
Definitely, Razia. I don't know if maybe we have anybody that wants to take on that question from the listeners, of course. Now we're opening it up to the listeners. Anyone? Please feel free just to raise your hand, and then Razia, if you can note. Maybe Razia, repeat the question again for our listeners.
So the question is, what changes can be expected in the skills and competencies required for academic advisors to effectively support students in the future?
A very, very critical question. I don't think there's anybody who's ready to answer this question. It's quite deep as well. Who answered the question, Razia?
So
maybe we can ask them to share their chat.
Yeah, but I think that Google would like to take a chance.
Okay. Come through, Gugu. I trust you on this one.
Thanks, Razi and Itu. I actually don't want to respond to it. I think I want to link it to a comment that was made by Evodia in the chat. And she said, if we're to lead advising in 2043, then advising may just be more of an ecosystem and not just a network. And I think that maybe starts responding to what Mujaisi has asked in the chat. What does this ecosystem potentially look like in Evodia's comment? And maybe that could segue us into more responses, but I'm seeing more colleagues that would like to share their reflections. But I think I'm interested in hearing what ecosystem Evodia is really referring to. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Gugu. I think we have Elizabeth. Share your comments on this one. We did say, guys, this is a talk show. You must talk a lot, say more, and do not hold anything back. Elizabeth? Okay, so Elizabeth's mic is muted. Okay. Technical team, are we able to unmute Elizabeth? Okay. Elizabeth, maybe we can just give you an opportunity later on. I think maybe the tech team will just let me know once they're able to unmute you. Elizabeth, are you here?
Yes.
Awesome. Thank you, tech team. Thank you, Elizabeth.
Just like Google, I don't have a direct answer to that question. Maybe what it calls us on to do is to be vigilant as academic advisors. In other words, let us have our eyes and ears open to what is happening around the world in terms of changes that are there, and maybe learn from each other as we move along. Don't want to get into a situation like when we had COVID and we didn't know what to do. And as you've already seen from what I've posted here, I wrote a paper with Constance on pragmatic approaches to enhancing student support during COVID, where we made our reflections. And I think when we share in terms of writing, when we also share in terms of seminars like this, we would move with times and also be able to assist students as much as possible, not forgetting, of course, where we are heading. As much as we've come back to physical contacts. We still have to move with times in terms of technology.
Definitely, sure. Thank you so much for that, Elizabeth. And I think that's the point of today's talk show. We are hoping that by today, the end of today's talk show, that as advisors, we start thinking about the future of advising, definitely, and also try to take the necessary steps that are required for us to, to be prepared for this future that we dream of. Thank you so much, Elizabeth. If I could give an opportunity to Yashna as well, Yashna.
Thank you, Itumeleng. So, I've been listening to the conversations, to the talk show, and it's very interesting, that we are thinking about the future in this way, and in some ways, the world in which we are sending students into, because one thing, at least from my personal experience, and most of us are, we're at a university or some institution of higher education where we know how long it takes for the institution to actually catch up with trends. As much as we talk about artificial intelligence in many of our spaces at the moment, the reality is most of us are still catching up with the decolonial moment, right? Let alone moving into this futuristic world of artificial intelligence. So I think for me, what I see in terms of academic advising as a practice is that interface between what are fairly rigid, slow-moving institutional responses to the kinds of graduate attributes that we are developing in our students, and the world that the students are actually going to embrace going forward. So in terms of that question about what are those competencies for academic advisors, I'm not sure what that means in terms of our training and our ability to engage with students, but I think it does become an important part of what we do, is being that interface or that translation between what they're actually getting in the curriculum and then what the world is that they're about to enter. Thanks.
Sure. No, thank you so much for that, Raishna. Let me make sure I'm pronouncing it. Riyashna. Thank you so much for that, Riyashna. Yes, definitely. Thank you so much. I don't know if we have any comments from our guests on what our callers have just said. Anything from our guests?
So for me, I think asking the wrong question. I think Rashna was almost alluding to that, if I heard her correctly. Because for me, the question is, in what way does higher education need to change? Because as advisors, we are placed within a particular body or an ecosystem. We just don't work, like remotely or out of context. Our context is higher education. And so we tend to respond, and we're sort of this bridge between there's higher education is responding to industry. And so for me, the larger question is, in what way does society need to change? And then backtrack, that will then influence, how does higher education need to change? And that will then inform, advising. Because yes, we can set up things and we're like, yes, this is what we want to do. But if higher education doesn't change, that's the larger context in which the students are operating. There's a logic that's happening there, and industry as well. So if those two things don't change, it doesn't, to me. So I think for me, it's the wrong question. The question is, in what way does higher education need to change? If we want a different outcome with a different future, something that's a lot more equitable, in what way do we see higher education changing? And then I think thinking about it as well, because a lot of our work as advisors tends to focus on our engagement with students, but I do think there needs to be a component that focuses on lobbying. So an advisor as an activist, lobbying for change in higher education, because maybe students in some ways don't have the voice, or they don't have the, in some cases there's SRC and there's such bodies, but as people who are so involved, if our populace is students, I do think there needs to be a component of advising that's trying to bring about those changes in higher education, to make it a more conducive environment for students. Yeah, thank you.
Sure. Thank you so much. And I was actually about to just ask you if we as advisors actually do have any powers at all, to affect change as we see fit. But I think you've just answered me there to say that perhaps maybe there needs to be a component of this academic advising that needs to be to sit with the decision makers of the higher education, so as to speak for the students. Am I correct? Am I saying what you're saying correctly?
Yes, I think that more or less captures what I'm trying to speak to. Yes.
Definitely. Thank you so much, Sandra. I think we are about to wrap off now. Razi, I don't know if we have just any last comments in the chat there before we close today's session. And also from our guests as well, I'll give you an opportunity just to say your parting shot. Razia, do you have anything from the chat just before we close and give it to our guests?
I do. I think that in the chat, people are agreeing with Sandra. And so I don't know if we are able to unmute Lamise, but I think that we just need to get a different perspective also. And if it's possible for her to come in, if we can unmute her, because she's written something in the chat. But I think that our listeners would benefit if we could just hear from Lamise.
That's fine. Tech team, are we able to unmute Lamise?
It's El Chetty.
El Chetty, please, if you could try to switch on your mic and see if it comes on.
Hi, good morning. Can you hear me?
Awesome. Yes. Hi,
Yes.
hi.
Thank you.
Hi, Itu, and hi, Razia. Thanks for giving the opportunity. So yeah, what I was saying in the chat box is literally, I think when it comes to the future, we still have to think about the various contexts where you're working. I am at Stellenbosch University, based in the Faculty of Medicine and Health Sciences as an academic advisor. And I still think it really just depends on where you are based in your specific environment. If we think about, people were speaking about realistic theories of the future. If you just think about the socio-ecological theory, you can definitely see how the outside communities and existing environments still play a very big relevant experience to the student that are in our institutions. They're still going to come in with various barriers. No longer, if we think about the future of AI, we think about what might happen in the technological systems in the institution. There's still going to be one to consider things like assessment standards, things like learning and teaching will still be prevalent in 20 years' time. It's just the how that will change. But I think our students will still come in with various barriers. And obviously the onset of mental health challenges that is still apparent right now, that students still come in and are often diagnosed only in the institution and need various amount of support to help them tackle with these various mental health challenges. And so these things will still be pertinent in the future. We have to think about how now will influence us and our projected thoughts of the way we work. But we also have to think about how the context will definitely influence us in the future. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you so much, Lamise, for that. I think what you said actually reminds me of an article that I was reading, which was saying that yes, the AI-powered tools, right, can give valuable information and guidance, but unfortunately will not be able to address the cultural, the physical, emotional, and social needs of students. And I think that's what you're touching on. So I think you were saying that definitely there will still be a need for advisors, but maybe it also just ties in with what Sandra was saying, to say that our job maybe moving forward would be more towards the side of like life coaching. I think, as you're saying, the emotional support that the students will need. I mean, also I think advisors currently, some of the things that they do also, I think they create opportunities for mentorship as well. I mean, also networking. As well as I think emotional support. So if they are overly reliant on the AI, then that might be an issue. We might miss out on that. But thank you so much. I'm actually going to close the show now. I think we've run out of time. I see that this topic is actually very, very packed. So I'm hoping that the committee would try to look into this and make it maybe just a bit of a of a topic to chat about for the whole, program going forward in the years to come. But thank you so much to all our listeners, to my co-hosts, to our esteemed guests, to our callers that have called in to give us, great input. We appreciate all that you guys have shared today. And my take-home message, our beloved listeners, is that the future is definitely near, and we have an idea of how it may look like. So let's start preparing for it now. This is how we sign out to our advisors, our heroes, our heroines, the doctors of the institutions, not by titles, of course, but by life-saving powers that they possess. This is your girl Itu. Until next time.
Colleagues, it's 10:26. I would like to get us going again so that we can afford all our participants and our presenters the allotted time. What an enriching and insightful talk show we've just had. I don't know who else felt like they were literally driving in Johannesburg or Cape Town traffic and listening to this conversation. And for the first time, you could actually engage with them live on air as opposed to phoning in and waiting for the producer to pick up your call. So once again, thank you so much, Itu and Razia. We really hope this segment can be a regular feature, at least once a month for us to reflect as a community. But it really gave me a sense of community. And in some of my pieces that I've picked up along with the conversations that we had this morning is really that our practice is a practice of inclusion as opposed to exclusion. So we need to really shy away from the boutique approaches, as I indicated earlier, really scale up, but more importantly, move along with the student and our institutions. We heard, in our reflections and our opinion pieces of what we envisage 2043, the practice to look like. But for me, what I picked up is we really need to move with our students, with our institutions, and we really need to ensure that our provision of both responsive and equitable opportunities remains on our radar as academic advising practitioner or student success practitioner, if anything, that we do. And more importantly, as Kate and Sandra also indicated, success looks different for every student. So we need to remember and listen to what success means for that student. And for me, it's no longer just an employable graduate, and it's no longer just an entrepreneurial graduate, but for me, it's what Sandra alluded to as an active member of society. And being that active member is in our part of our shaping the future of these students. And again, thank you so much. Colleagues, we are going to move into our concurrent sessions, which will start at 10:30. We have two concurrent sessions that will be taking place at 10:30 till 11 o'clock. During that session, we will have the presenters have 20 minutes to present. They will deliver their presentation, their talk for us, and there will be a 10-minute Q&A. There are colleagues that signed up for specific sessions according to the programs, according to the different concurrent sessions. If you've chosen the one over the other, fear not. We are recording all the sessions. You will be able to catch all the presentations at a later stage. But if you're really having that burning question that you want to ask, and you really want to attend only the one, then you're more than welcome to do so that you can engage in the Q&A session. We're going to listen to two presenters. The one is a Dr. Deepti, and she will be talking to us about engaging digital learners by using a chatbot for informational advising in higher education. And the other presentation will be delivered by Simpiwe, and the title of that presentation is The Impact of a Centralized Hub for Advising and Student Support at UCT and its Contribution to Student Academic Success. If you have not opted for your presentation, our production team will usher you into one of the two sessions, but we will then make sure that you can catch the other session at a later stage. We really do hope that you enjoy, and all of the best to the presenters. See you in a bit. Thank you.
Welcome back to the main room, everyone. We do want to apologize for the assignment of the selection that you had made. We had a few issues, and so, but we do hope that you did enjoy the presentations that you attended. So right now we're going to hear from our colleagues from the Northwest University. We have Ms. Renette, Ms. Mita, and Mr. Jan Paul. So Ms. Renette Kukumur is the coordinator of the academic advising program at the Northwest University and responsible for the program on the Potchefstroom campus for the university. She has a master's degree in educational psychology and is currently busy with her PhD with a focus on student well-being. Ms. Mita is the coordinator of the academic advising program on the Northwest University in Mahikeng. She holds a master's degree in Indigenous Knowledge Systems and is currently busy with her PhD in the same discipline. Her other roles include being the Northwest University Academic Peer Mentor Program coordinator, as well as representing the Mahikeng campus on the Student Centricity Project. Mr. Jan Paul is the coordinator of the Academic Advising Program on the Northwest Vanderbijl Park campus. He has an honors degree in language practice, as well as a postgrad diploma in higher education. He is also the coordinator of the Reading Development Program on his campus. So colleagues, we give over to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, colleagues. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Jan-Paul, can you just give me a thumbs up that you can see the screen? Thank you. What a privilege to share with you what we as the academic advising team of Northwest University have been up to for the last 2+ years. As we've been introduced, my name is Renette Kukumur. I'm the coordinator for the Northwest University Academic Advising Program, and I also have with you my 2 campus co-coordinators on the Mahikeng campus, Ms. Mita, and on the Vanderbijl Park campus, Mr. Jan-Paul Fuyun. We also just want to acknowledge the whole NW academic advising team, of which the majority is also attending here today. What we are about to share with you are most definitely the fruits of a whole team effort. So first of all, let's just quickly talk about why, what, and how. The NW is committed to functioning as a unitary, integrated, multi-campus university. So that's why it's very important for us to work collaboratively over our 3 campuses. With the majority of our Northwest University academic advisors completing the Academic Advising Professional Development Program presented by our colleagues there at UFS during the years of 2019-2020, the team acknowledged the need to establish a contextualized theoretical understanding of advising as a developmental, holistic practice, and to work together to promote the scholarly practice of academic advising at NWU. So this presentation will share how the small team of academic advisors spread over 3 campuses, 2 provinces, collaboratively embarked on an ongoing journey to develop and advance academic advising at Northwest University. Our goal is to frequently engage in conversations and discussions for a better conceptual understanding of academic advising fit for the Northwest University. What we are sharing with you today is the mission we are still busy with. So even though we cannot yet say mission complete, we are proud to say mission possible. Moving on to the how, we decided on a participatory design due to the following key components of this specific methodology. It's an interactive design and developmental process that includes all the users and stakeholders. The project goals and the criteria are collaboratively developed, and it allows for representation of a variety of perspectives. For us as the coordinators, involving all the academic advisors is crucial in promoting collaboration among team members, and to generate ideas, reach consensus, and develop, as we will share with you today, just as an example, a shared definition, mission, objectives for our program, and to then eventually develop a Northwest University academic advising framework. So the participatory design involves different techniques that's being used based on the form of activities, their purpose, and their context. And for our program, these activities are facilitated during a range of bi-weekly or monthly online discussion sessions, where the advisors then collaborate, reflect, and learn from one another with the goal to advance academic advising at Northwest University. And that is why we call this discussion series or the sessions AAA discussions, advancing academic advising. Before most of these discussions, coordinators will identify a task or an activity for the advisors to complete in preparation for the discussion of a specific topic. I'm handing over to my colleague Jan Paul to share with you what we've been doing.
Thank you, Reinette. So over the last 2 and more years, we had various sessions and activities to align the ideas and perceptions that we had surrounding academic advising at the Northwest University, and very importantly, within the academic advising team. We started, as you can see on screen, with the definition, moving on to the mission, and then objectives, theories, and approaches to academic advising at the Northwest University. For the purposes of this presentation, I'm only going to focus on the definition and mission, but you are welcome to contact myself, Reinette, or Mita after the session if you have any additional questions with regards to the other activities. Each session that we had, every activity that we had built and followed and built on the previous activity. This was specifically to allow our idea of academic advising to flow from the contextual definition that we created within the team, and so permeate all the other aspects of academic advising in accordance with this definition. So this went from definition to the mission, to the objectives, to the theoretical grounding and academic advising approaches moving forward. So in the next few slides, we are going to share with you the process that we follow to develop our definition, our mission, our objectives, etc. So for the definition, and you can see the definition on screen there, we started by using a word cloud generator to identify keywords. For this, we used the WooClap web application, and then from there we continued with group discussions and breakout rooms using Microsoft Teams to continuously formulate and revise a definition for academic advising at the Northwest University, and this went through multiple iterations. By following this format, we eventually arrived at the following working definition for academic advising at the Northwest University, which is academic advising at the Northwest University is an ongoing, intentional, and collaborative teaching and learning practice that empowers, guides, develops, and supports students to achieve their academic goals through the use of a full range of student academic development and support, as well as other institutional resources. So this includes what is it, what does it do, to what end, and how it's doing it. Moving on to the next slide, we followed similar structures for our other activities as well. So all of them went through multiple iterations and versions before arriving at their final version. So we moved from the definition, which was in the previous slide, to our mission. And for this, we focused on first the primary purpose of our program, the primary functions and activities of the program, and then who our program was serving. So the reasons why we perform our major activities, the most important functions, operations, outcomes, and offerings of the program, and then the people who participate in or who benefit from the academic advising program. So on screen, you can see how we made use of a shared Google document and Microsoft Teams breakout rooms to collaborate on drafting our mission statement. So everybody in the team could work on this and collaborate on this document. By doing this, the mission statement that we eventually arrived at, as you can see on screen as well, is that academic advising at the Northwest University is to improve student academic access, retention, and success by providing scholarly and informed individual and group advising opportunities to all of Northwest University students. And finally, just a quick overview of the objectives. We did similar things for the objectives as well. To identify and develop our objectives, we focused on 4 specific areas, which we then discussed and elaborated on using the Padlet web app to elaborate on these. So these were focused on what would students develop, what would they gain, what would they receive, and then what would they achieve, or what did we want to achieve through this program. I'm now going to hand over to Mamita Mahodielo for the reflection sessions. Thank you, Mita.
Thank you very much, Jean-Paul and Reinette. Ladies and gentlemen, as we follow this participatory approach, we also included in this session the reflections. Therefore, in our reflection as a group, as a team, we focus on each year or on particular season. And each and every member of the team had a part to participate on this reflection. Now, we continue during our reflections to look at the aims and the aims of our reflections. And then there we were checking on each other's progress or what is happening in our different campuses. We also shared our ideas and experiences, not only on the AAA discussion, but as well as on the academic advising at that particular moment itself. We also made sure that we pave a way forward for each and every one's experiences, and also what is it that is next that we need to make sure that we discuss or we follow. So as we continue on this, we made sure that each and every colleague will participate, as our coordinator will be the one first guiding us on how to go about. Then I want to show you one example. We have many examples, but I chose this one example because it's the one that resonates very well with what was happening during this journey. This is one of the many activities that we had and we did as the 3 campuses. It was the most touching one in as far as I'm concerned, and each academic advisor was able to express their feeling about this AAA journey thus far. The picture on the slides were used to explain our journeys as individuals. Each had to choose from the images in the slides that most resonate with them, and after that, they will even explain why they say so during this journey of 2021. This was done in the form of a 5 minutes waterfall activity where each team member choose one picture and write in the chart the number of that picture and then the reason next to that number why they say so. Then 5 minutes, all of us will press enter, and at the same time, all the reflection will appear, and then each one will start reading their reflection and explaining how they feel in as far as this journey is concerned. But I want to emphasize something very important. Even though we had different reflections as far as the journey is concerned, but the goal was one. Our goal was to engage in a discourse to arrive at a better conceptual understanding of academic advising fit for the NW context. So in this journey of AAA 2021, which is very exciting, it was very exciting, but yet number one picture, somebody said, I feel like it was lonely. And then picture 2, it was dark, but there was lights there and there as I move. And then the third picture, there was a light in a tunnel. And fourth picture, I found confusion as I look at the clouds that are very confusing. But the picture number 5, somebody said, I am scared in this journey, but I'm bold as I continue because I know this will be accomplished. And picture number 6, somebody said, there is hope at the end of this journey. I believe we will arrive. So, ladies and gentlemen, as Renette indicated very clearly that this is mission possible. We really believe that we are arriving where we are going. And therefore, in that, I just want to summarize everything by saying, during this reflection as a team, we had a platform where we could have a freedom of expression, because this participatory approach that we use gave us freedom of expression, free participation and collaboration that was allowed on this platform. So for us to be able to give out our ideas, it was one stop station. All ideas were generated on this platform, different techniques to define our program were used on this platform. It was a crucial first step in employing new interventions and approaches to support our students on their higher education journey in our rapidly changing academic world. Number two, we were able to benchmark on this platform by using this approach. As part of the preparation on these activities, we also looked at our AAPD course content and also look at the NACADA website. For example, the definition of academic advising of NACADA. We also look at the ELETSA academic advising definition and many others as examples. And then there was a buy-in from all of us as a team. Everyone was involved and is still involved in generating ideas and reaching a consensus, as well as deciding on the best way forward. For every academic advisor, there has been an ownership, lastly, to this AAA model. As we are to date, we are looking at academic advising, as you have heard from Jan Paul, what our definition of academic advising in the Northwest University is. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, Jan Paul. Thank you, Mita. So, colleagues, by embarking on this journey, we as the academic advising team can now roll out our new project as part of the UCDP collaborative grant for academic advising. As part of this project, one of the Northwest University's first objectives is to develop an academic advising guiding framework that is institutionally specific. And the AAA discussions definitely set the groundwork for this objective. And by making use of this same approach that we have done now in-house, we can take it out to our institution. We can involve the various stakeholders like faculty, staff, students, and administrators who work together to now set goals, develop policies, and make decisions that impact the institution and its students. The idea is to create a culture of collaboration and inclusivity that promotes transparency, accountability, and shared responsibility for the success of our students at Northwest University. Thank you very much for this opportunity to speak to you today. We acknowledge the UCDP for making it possible for us to take this to our institution moving forward. We are now taking any questions from your side. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Northwest colleagues. I really loved the whole idea of having the AA discussions, AAA discussions, sorry, where all advisors come together to share their different perspectives and different ideas of their own practice at the different institutions, and also the reflections on the journey of each advisor on each campus as well, based on the images that were shown on the screen as well. I think it's such a great way to really see what each individual advisor really is what they see and how they're seeing advising for themselves. So thank you very much, colleagues. And also hearing ELETSA and NACADA helping in the advising practices in your institution always makes me happy to see that colleagues are actually taking the initiative to go into all of that. So colleagues, as Renate already said, we're going to go now into the Q&A. So if you have any questions, please just raise your hand and the tech team will unmute you so you can ask your question, or you can type a question in the chat, and we will also make sure to give that to the colleagues to answer. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Zandi, and thank you to all the colleagues from Northwest University. As I've indicated in my comment, well done for breaking through the provincial borders of South Africa to make this possible. I think my question is really just at understanding how you have in your definition defined what academic development boundaries are and what academic advising boundaries are, because I think in your definition you speak to both academic development. It was the slide that Jan Paul spoke about. In your definition, you've included academic development. So if you don't mind just giving us some insight into what you mean as academic development and what you mean as academic advising, because I think in many of our instances, some some of our institutions are moving from having an academic development unit to centers for teaching and learning, and now to academic advising. But at Northwest, what's interesting is you've brought both to coexist in your definition. Thank you.
Thank you for your question, Gugu. Yes, so at Northwest University, our academic advising program is within our Center for Teaching and Learning. So currently we are in a centralized function, not necessarily within our faculties. So we focus on a lot on academic skills development. So in our day-to-day, we will definitely have the majority of the students that we assist in academic advising would be for academic skills development, where the informational component and the curriculum type of advising usually happens within faculties at faculty advisors. And that's definitely something for us moving forward that we want to bring together within our faculties to make sure that the collaboration is there and the relationships are built there, so that we can refer to one another back and forth between faculty curriculum advice and academic skills development type of advising, and bring it together and work together more closely. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you so much, Renette. It did. Thanks.
Welcome back, colleagues. We hope that you had a good lunch break, that you were able to catch up on what you had to catch up on. And now we're going to get ready for the second leg of the seminar. We will now hear from Dr. Ling, who is one of the NACADA representatives, and she'll be just sharing with us more on that. I believe that we heard a lot of NACADA references during the other presentations. So Dr. Ling is the Director of International Student Success at Syracuse University. She is a scholar practitioner in the field of international higher education and academic advising with years of experiences in teaching, advising, research, and administration. Dr. Ling has served in various professional roles at 5 universities. Her work experiences range from teaching undergraduate and graduate students, advising international students and scholars, directing study abroad programs, developing international partnerships, to leading and implementing campus internationalization. She has served and currently serves on multiple leadership committees of AIEA, NAFSA, and NACADA, and frequently presents and publishes on issues of international higher education and academic advising. Dr. Ling is the founder of International Student Academic Success Community for NACADA. Her research interests include international student success, global learning, curriculum internationalization, international partnerships, assessment, student and faculty mobility. Dr. Ling holds a PhD in higher education and a master's in language education from Indiana University, Bloomington. Dr. Ling, we will give over to you now.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me here, everybody, colleagues. Good afternoon for you and good morning for me here. It's my 7 a.m. in the morning. So it is a privilege to be here. Thank you so much for Google's invitation. What an honor to share with colleagues about NACADA and what we do here. So today's topic is make global connections by engaging with NACADA, the global community for academic advising. So while my day job is Director of International Student Success at Syracuse University, USA, also my volunteer role with NACADA is I'm the chair of NACADA's Global Conference Advisory Board. So today, I hope that after this talk and also, of course, the end, we're going to have plenty of time for you to ask questions. Happy to respond. Now, 3 takeaways from today's the 30 minutes. The first one, I will briefly introduce to you NACADA's mission, core values, and advising competencies. Also, benefits of being connected to NACADA and professional development opportunities through NACADA global leadership groups. We need you. We definitely would like you with more colleagues from the world to join us. So first of all, for some of you, if you haven't seen this, the image yet. So this is the ethical principles that guide advising practice. So first of all, let's talk about NACADA. What is NACADA? When was it founded? So NACADA basically has been around for almost 50 years. So it's the leading association of academic advising in the US. Also, definitely, so we also have lots of global members. We would like to also invite as many global members as possible to join us. So this leading organization focuses on advancement of student success through academic advising. And then right now, NACADA has over 14,000 members from 40 countries. So we because we have so many, US is large, so that therefore we have also different regions. We have 10 regions, 10 advisory boards, 8 committees, and 38 advising communities. By the way, if you are not NACADA member yet, I want to mention that joining NACADA is really, the membership is
Apologies,
really reasonable.
Dr. Ling.
Yes.
Sorry, we just realized that your screen is not being shared. So can you please share your content? Yes.
Oh, I'm so sorry about
Apologies.
that. Okay.
No problem.
Okay.
There we go. We have it. Thank you.
Okay, sorry. Okay, here. Yes. And then I will briefly, so went back. So now I'll share you my slides. So here are the 3 takeaways. And then here, the image is the ethical principles. So I just mentioned that NACADA has over 14,000 members and from over 40 countries. So join NACADA, the membership fee, I know always professional organization charge membership fee, but this is the most reasonable one I have ever been involved. It's per year, I believe, about $100 to join the membership. Okay, our mission for NACADA. So we would like to provide exemplary and innovative opportunities for the global advising community. So NACADA is inclusive, global, scholarly, and it is a true community. We have our own peer-reviewed journal and publications, which I will mention shortly after. So for those of you, if you have not seen this chart yet, this image, so this is a framework for academic advising core competencies. So, and then the academic advising community in the US and North America. So basically we practice our advising based on this framework. So conceptual, informational, and relational. What does that mean, conceptual? Basic conceptual is you need to, as an academic advisor, you need to understand the context for the delivery of academic advising. You need to know ideas and the theories, show your understanding. And informational, you need to know the substance of academic advising, knowledge. For example, knowledge of your university's curriculum, knowledge of those core requirements. And then relational, you need the skills to convey the concepts and information. So therefore, this is the framework for academic advising competency: conceptual, informational, and relational. Basically, show understanding and knowledge and skills. So here I would like to talk in details about the benefits of being connected to NACADA. So here, this is the image showing you all those benefits if you are a NACADA member. And I would like to emphasize NACADA is a true global network. So through this organization, basically you get to know, so there are 14,000 members in the organization. So you have connections for all those professionals. And then NACADA also offers scholarship, research grant to our members. And of course, we have events all year long. For example, conference, workshops, webinar, tutorials, everything like that. And then also you have the free access to NACADA's publications and resources. For example, NACADA Journal, it's a peer-reviewed journal. and academic advising today, and NACADA review. And also NACADA has a clearinghouse, many resources in the past decades. You can go there, search any resources you want. It's a centralized, basically, academic resources, and also professional resources for advisors. And then we have awards every year. And then if you're a member, so you may be nominated for award. And then also we have emerging leader program. So if you're interested, being a mentored by experts in this field, yeah, we have this program for you. So, and then absolutely, so there's so many benefits and so many resources there with NACADA. So then next, I would like to introduce to you the 3 global leadership groups with in NACADA. So which I'm one of them, and then I'm in the Global Conference Advisory Board. Also, we have Global Initiative Committee and Global Engagement Advising Community. I will introduce them briefly, and also I would like to show how we would like you to join us. First of all, this is our conference advisory board. Okay, so we have 10 people right now on the board, and then our term is 2 years, basically every 2 years, and then we need new member. So if you're interested in it, definitely it's a wonderful professional opportunity for you to learn how to put a conference together and also meet with other colleagues of the world. So our mission is to provide support to ensure a high quality global conference every other year. So we're going to have a global conference next year, 2024. And then so we will assist in identifying sites for the conference. It's outside of North America. And then also identifying conference themes and speakers, and then also identifying the methods of assessing the effectiveness of the conference. As I mentioned that we'll have the global conference next year, but this year on November 6th, we're going to have a virtual global summit. So it's virtual, and if you're a NACADA member, you can join those events for free. Not the global conference. Global conference, you need to pay fee, but the virtual global summit, it's free for NACADA members. And then we also have Global Initiatives Committee. There are about 10 people there as well. So this committee's mission is to assist with the recruitment, retention, and support of international academic advising professionals. Again, we need committee members. So every year, basically, because each term is 2 years. The last but not least is global engagement advising communities. For those of you, if NACADA is new to you, so NACADA has 38 communities. Each community has, it depends, at least over 200 members. Some even has more. Okay, so from this image, you can tell that it depends on the topic. For example, the theme, academic coaching, adult learners, advising administration, and those things. And then, so global engagement advising community is one of the 38. So its mission is to share knowledge and experience of working with ESL, English as second language, or English as foreign language, international education for all students. And then, so also encouraging advisor to share and discuss their skills and techniques to advise global student population. And then, so right now, I believe this group has over 400 members. So if you're a NACADA member, you can join 4 of those communities. So, and then those communities, usually every week, they send out newsletter, events, they have some online discussion. So you can join them, or join 4 of them. Of course, they're all free for you. Okay, so it depends on your interest. So I believe that's the introduction. I plan to talk with you. Now I'm ready for answering your questions. So anybody has questions, so So Google, how do you manage this for question Q&A?
Zandi will take over. Thank you very much, Ling.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Ling. So one thing that in case some colleagues have not noted, that South African universities have institutional membership that is part of the UCDG collaborative grant. I know I myself have made use of the clearinghouse for some resources on various topics of interest that I had for myself. So colleagues, the platform is now open for you to ask questions and get any understanding that you need from Dr. Ling. You can just raise your hand and we will unmute you. Yes, Gugu.
Thank you so much, Zandi. Ling, I think for me, I want to first thank you again for connecting with us so early on your end and into our afternoon. I think for me, what I'm interested in hearing a bit about is the virtual summit. I am part of the committee that is arranging it, but because we are speaking of there being a South African panel that forms part of this summit, if you could share with us what the thoughts of the committee was around having such a summit, why the summit, if there's conference next year, why is summit this year, and why is there no conference this year, and who will be participating? Will it only be US-based colleagues, or will it be again a global initiative, since it is part of the global committee's events? Thanks.
Absolutely. So the virtual summit, okay, so because NACADA's global conference was called International Conference, started about 15 years ago. And then, so at the beginning it was hosted every year in a country outside of North America. And because the COVID, the pandemic interruption, and so things kind of paused for a while. Now we look at the strategy and just the plan. And then so we plan to do the global conference. We rename it global conference, so every other year. So that's why this year we'll not have global conference, but 2024 we'll have one, and 2026. So that's the plan. However, though, we do want to be connected with global members every year. That's why this year, so we would like to do host a virtual global summit. Okay, what we're going to do, virtual global summit. So we would like colleagues from outside of the North America to share with us the trends and challenges of academic advising in their regions. For example, this virtual summit, we plan to have 2 panels. One panel will be from South Africa under Google's leadership. We would love to hear from you and colleagues in South Africa, the challenging academic advising. We would love to learn from you, because the diverse perspectives is the way for us to grow in this field. Another panel will be from East Asia, Asia actually. So we'll have colleagues from China, Japan, and Kazakhstan. So they are going to share also what's going on in their region. So their challenging trends. So then we can look at, so the colleagues from the world can learn from them, know what's going on the other side of the globe. So, and then this virtual global summit, it's not just for knowledge sharing, also make us more connected, so we can be connected to each other. And then we'll talk about, the global conference in 2024. And then at that time, we should have a clear plan for 2024. And then we can share with you. So call for proposal. So we would like you to submit session proposal. For the conference.
Thank you, Ling.
Thank you, Dr. Ling. I believe that colleagues have seen Gugu's comment there in the comment section that if your university is not yet a NACADA member, that you can just email us on that email address. And that if you're interested in representing South Africa in the Virtual Global Summit, you can also just look out for that call that will come through Alexa. Dr. Ling, we really thank you for your time, for sharing, about NACADA and just also giving us more information on what exactly the different advising committees include and what they entail. Thank you so much. We appreciate you.
Sorry, I saw somebody raise the hand.
Oh, yes, Elizabeth. Yes, you can go. Okay, you can speak now, Elizabeth.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ling, for sharing with us more about NACADA. We've heard a little bit about it and also read about it. And my concern is on all those other issues and activities that NACADA offers. And I don't know with the other institutions or even our own institution, maybe I'm the only one who is lost. But what I know is we don't even know how we become part of this and how we participate in so many activities that NACADA is offering for advisors.
I see. Basically, Elizabeth, so you wonder how can you start? How can you, so means how can you participate in those activities?
Yes.
Okay, great. I know there's so many, right? So many resources here. Yes. So, okay, so let me move to the slide here. Okay. I will start from small, okay? Okay, for example, okay, if you are a NACADA member, and then so the Global Initiatives Committee, and then so there are 10 people right now, okay? So, but they have many activities that invite everybody to join. For example, it's called Friends Network. And so basically, if you're interested in meeting somebody, let's say hypothetically in Japan, okay, you are interested in meeting a colleague, say, I'm interested in what's going on in Japan. So, and then you join the Friends Network, they have a quick survey. You can fill it out. You say, oh, I'd like to have somebody from Japan or have somebody from Australia to learn. So this committee then will match you with colleagues in Japan and Australia of your interest. And then you and this colleague will be connected. You can share your, experience basically. So you have like a colleague, so another side of the world you get to be friends with. And this is just one simple example, okay? And then for the communities, okay, advising communities, for example, so they also have activities all year long. For example, they may invite panels, from the world, and say we would like to invite, somebody advisor who are interested in talking about sharing what they do, for example, anywhere in the world. So you can say, okay, I would like to do that, and then you'll be invited to serve as the panel to talk about talk to all the members in the community. And then, so the community, I received the email before, so because I'm also part of this community, I choose them as one of my favorite preferred communities. And then for NACADA conference, so they may say, hey, we would like somebody to propose, a session on this topic. Anybody, if you're interested, and then you can just share with your contact information. We're going to put you together with colleagues who with the same interest. And then you get to meet with other colleagues, and then you can submit a proposal together. So the key word I would say is connections. Basically, through NACADA, you're going to make lots of connections. Does this answer your question, Elizabeth?
Thank you so much. You will get in touch.
Okay, great.
Gugu, I see you have your hand up. You can please speak.
Thank you so much, Zandi. Just parallel to what Ling has spoken about in the different communities, because those are more of your personal special interests. From South Africa, we have all 26 our universities having membership to NACADA through an institutional membership profile, and that is paid for via the collaborative grant. So if you're not sure who in your institution is the lead or holds the account with NACADA for your profile for your institution, you're more than welcome to connect with us, and we'll gladly share that information with you.
Thank you, Gugu, for sharing that information. So yes, you can just send an email to the ELETSA mailbox, and we will send who the institutional rep is, and you can just communicate with them about that. So Dr. Ling, we thank you very much once again for sharing about NACADA, and I believe that the colleagues now are more aware of what they can get from NACADA, and will be more, they'll be very interested in going there to see what they can do and what communities they can be a part of. We thank you very much for your time.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, Dr. Ling. Colleagues, we will now go over to Dr. Razia, who will be introducing the ethical standards in South Africa for academic advising. So Dr. Razia is the head of academic support at the University of Wits and the inaugural vice president of ELETSA, the professional association for advisors in South Africa. Dr. Musa is responsible for academic support, including online learning support at the institutional level. She played a leading role in the institutioning advising at Wits and convenes a community of practice for advisors. Dr. Musa is also responsible for leading the management and evaluation of the Department of Higher Education and Trainings grants at her institution. She has previously held positions in academic planning, quality assurance, program monitoring and evaluation, education policy, admissions, and student recruitment. Dr. Musa has also served on various national working groups, providing input instrumental to changes in the South African higher education landscape. Her discipline background is in planning, and in addition, she has a master's in curriculum, education policy, and management of teaching and learning. She obtained an international doctorate from the University of Bath in the UK and was awarded the Richard and Shirley Maudet Award for Outstanding Academic Achievement. Her research interests are in higher education, academic advising, student success, evidence-based practice, and program evaluation. Dr. Razia, we will move over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Zandi. Afternoon, everyone. I know that when Gugu started this morning, she said that she was really looking forward to this session. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move off into presentation mode, and then I'll switch off my camera. But then when we do the discussion session, I will open up my camera and then we can have a discussion. So I'm just going to move to presentation mode. Okay. I'm hoping that you can all see my screen now. As Gugu said this morning, this is the third National Advising Seminar hosted by ELETSA, and we'd like to take this opportunity to launch the Code of Conduct and Ethical Standards guiding the professional conduct of academic advisors. I don't have much time, so I'd like to provide an overview of what you can expect when you go through the document. I'm going to be starting off with the need for this document, the process that was followed in its compilation, and more importantly, the purpose. I'll then do an overview of the code before opening the floor for a discussion. Just a bit of background. I coordinate the community of practice engagements at WITS, and in one of our COP meetings last year, our academic advisors identified the need for a code of conduct for us at WITS. I then took the issue to ILETSA since there were implications for such a document to have national impact on best practice in the profession. The process that we followed was done in 3 steps. So firstly, we set up a steering committee with representation from the Siyapumelela initial partner institutions such as WITS, UFS, UCT, and DUT. And then secondly, we got representatives from these institutions and they were asked to constitute working groups to provide feedback on draft versions. And then thirdly, I also approached individuals in the sector and I asked them to provide feedback inside into the document. And I think that was very valuable. So what is this document? I think that it's important to clarify from the outset what the document is and what it isn't. So with regard to the purpose or what the document isn't, so it isn't a training manual or a good practice guide or a document to instruct your institutions on policies or on your training needs. This document focuses on providing principles to guide good practice in academic advising and allows for agency of advisors. We also recognize the diversity at the level of institutions in higher education in South Africa, as well as diversity in our student and staff populations. So the purpose of the principles outlined in the document is thus to provide academic advisors with ethical guidelines and aspirational ideals to adhere to in their advising practices. The core values of NACADA form the basis for academic advisors' conduct, and those have been incorporated into this document. So the document is divided into 5 sections. It starts off with the preamble, the philosophy and theory, the ethical guiding principles. We then have a section on review and the addenda. The preamble indicates that the core conduct is promulgated under the auspices of ILETSA and that the core values as stipulated by NACADA form the basis for academic advisors' conduct, as I said. The purpose was outlined, as I did earlier, and it's important to note that ILETSA provides a national definition of academic advising and that higher education institutions may further define academic advising and advisors' roles within their context. So we've made room for that in this document. The tenets of Ubuntu offer a fitting philosophy and theory that permeates every aspect of academic advising as set out in the transformative practices. And it's important to note that principles and ethical standards are not exhaustive, but that they encapsulate the various contexts and conduct related to academic advising. So the guiding principles that govern conduct serve as codes of practice and provide defensible and consistent actions to guide advisors' work. The philosophy and theory is based on Ubuntu, and it emphasizes the importance of humanity through values such as respect, caring, dignity, and connections, for example, and it exudes South African values and enables a culture of belonging, students and student success, which is important in all our higher education institutions. The section on ethical guiding principles acknowledges that advisors come into daily contact with students and that they encounter ethical issues which influence their conduct and may be resolved by referring to the 3 guiding principles of transformation, Ubuntu, and reflective practice. So the first principle is transformation, and it's important in order to empower advisors and students. The transformation imperatives include 7 sections, which I've just outlined. So non-maleficence, social justice, equity of access and outcomes, social media, responsibility, and autonomy in advising practices. Ubuntu then forms the second principle, and it aligns with ethics of care, ethics of love, student-centeredness, and holistic support, for example. This section covers 6 tenets, and they are integrity, respect, privacy and confidentiality, ethics of care, conflict of interest, and responsiveness. The third principle is reflective practice, and it should really be foregrounded in practices such as research and publishing, professional development, the boundaries that are established in legal issues that extend beyond ethics. So these 4 sections have been incorporated into this third principle. This document is meant to be a living document, and as such, we've made room in the document for a review process. So this section on the review is proposed with a formal review every 5 years. In the period leading up to the review, ILETSA will monitor both the higher education context as well as advising within the South African context. And then in addition to the code of conduct, we are proposing at this initial stage that we have a practice workbook, which is meant to serve as the addenda. So the addendum at the moment has 2 sections. The first section deals with procedures for unethical dilemmas. And then, as I said to you, we are proposing that we have a code of conduct practice workbook. Today, we are launching the code of conduct and ethical standards, but we'd like to move into the last consultation to allow you to provide input until the end of June in order for us to make the final version available in July this year. As part of our way forward, we are pleased to call for volunteers to assist us with drafting the code of practice guide. So while we're asking for input into the code of conduct, we're also saying that we would like you to participate in drafting the practice guide as well. We really are hoping that this document will assist advisors to provide the best possible advice and support to students and contribute to a positive and supportive academic environment. Before I move into the discussion session, I would like to take the opportunity to extend my gratitude to everyone who provided invaluable critical input, and also to the advisors at WITS who initiated the compilation of this important resource for advisors. So having said that, I do have the code of conduct that I can show you because I see that I'm doing really well for time. But I think that I'd like to open the floor to a discussion. And I just need to open up my camera. Yes, so I am back, and I think that now is a good time for us to discuss maybe your feelings about the overview that I've given. If you'd like me to open up the document, I can open it up if you have specific questions. And then just to say that the document will be available on the ILETSA website for people to download and then to send comments to me. I just want to make sure that the screen that you're seeing has, yeah. So are there any comments, questions? Okay, I see that Ida says that she likes the Ubuntu part of it, and that it's important for the feeling of belonging. So I think that you've hit the nail on the head. I think that Ubuntu is important. It's something that is South African. So as I said to you, we have looked at the core values of NACADA, but this document is meant for our South African context. And so, yes, I see that other people are putting thumbs up and they are saying that they really like the Ubuntu aspect of it. So thank you very much for that.
Thank you, Dr. Razia, for sharing that. Colleagues, so if you have any input or any questions that you have, please just do raise your hands and the technical team will unmute you so you can say something. Prof. Stradom, if you can go.
Hi, Razia. I just want to thank you and the team for the wonderful work that's been going into this document. I think the ethical standards is absolutely vital and a vital component of moving us along the road to professionalization of advising further in South Africa. I really just wanted to give that recognition and compliment. I think it's so important for this community that has put on such a phenomenal conversation today to take this forward, because that's what will determine your identity as professionals, is how we think about ethics in our context.
Thank you, Francois. And then I just want to reiterate that this document is not something that someone out there came up with. It is something that practicing advisors requested and they gave input into it. And so it really is something that's from the ground level up. And so I'm hoping that it will really be beneficial. And as part of ILETSA, I think that, as I said, it's a valuable resource. So I am looking forward to the comment that you will give us so that we can actually get these ethical standards out. I see that there's something in the chat that I'm just going to read. Zandi, there was another hand up. I just can't see who it was now.
If you had your hand up, if you can just please raise it once again so we can just note you, so the technical team can unmute you as you speak.
There's a question, Riashna.
Yes. There's a question from Dr. Riashna. She says, is there a plan to have a related implementation guide?
So, Riashna, I think that that's a very important question. I think that we had, different steps that we were following, and that what we thought we'd do is that we'd use a phased approach to the implementation. So our first thing that we would like is obviously more national comment on the draft that we have. Secondly, we'd like to propose the good practice guide. And then thirdly, as you've just identified now, that there may be a need for an implementation guide. And so I think that if we're using a phased approach, then we should just move with these steps in mind. So thank you for raising that. And then I just want to note also that there is something in the chat, and I think that you can see it. It comes from K2. She says that it goes back to the discussion that we had this morning in the talk show, that these ethical standards will definitely inform the skills that are needed in the future. So yes, so we're trying to get it out so that it's current, so that we can start using it. And I think that future use, it is definitely going to be something that we can draw on. So thanks for that, Kate. My question or comment is not necessarily for me. Okay.
Okay, so Untiretsi said, my question or comment is not necessarily directed to Razia, but rather to everyone in the room. For instance, how do we go about bringing the conversation on the decolonization of the curriculum and the university in general into academic advising work that we do in our respective institutions, as different as they are? So colleagues, if you want to comment on that or answer that, you can just raise your hands. You can also leave a comment in the comment section, as everyone has been doing.
Yes, Google.
Thanks. I think I'm glad Riyashna is raising her hand because I was also going to pass the baton on to her. But I think one of the important things, and this has been the thread throughout the day, is Unteretse, in your remarks, you allude to the curriculum and the university in general, and I think that is the golden piece that lies into the response to your question, because we've said as advisors we cannot move ahead of our institutions and neither can we move ahead of our students. So I think for me, the simple response to your question is staying abreast with who our students are in South Africa particularly, and more importantly, where our institutions are moving, because as a colleague mentioned earlier, as much as we're talking about AI and where things are moving into the future, the reality also still is that we cannot lose sight of who our students are and where they come from and what their needs are and where we want to produce them to be active members in society. Thank you.
Dr. Riyashna?
Thank you, Nanette. Yeah, so I think and thanks, Gugu. So the way that I see it is multifold. So the ways in which Razia and her team have incorporated the concept of Ubuntu into looking at the ethical standards is sort of one way in which we are incorporating African perspective, African lens, African context into the work. But the way that I see it is that academic advising in and of itself as a practice can largely be seen to be decolonial work. And the reason why I say that is because there are various things to look at. So the idea of colonialism is that it creates an elite, a group that has access to and can succeed in. And it's what I call gatekeeping practices and gatekeeping culture. And academic advising is about deconstructing that gatekeeping, making the implicit explicit for students, helping them understand, and in a sense also creating for students a kind of social and cultural capital that they would otherwise be expected to come into the institution. So to my mind, yes, I agree that we can do it in very explicit ways, employing these principles of decolonization, but that academic advising in and of itself is a form of decolonial practice. Thanks.
Thank you, Dr. Riyashna. Elizabeth, I see your hand is up.
Thank you, Tim. I agree with the last two speakers. In fact, when I looked at the ethical guideline or guiding principle 2 about transformation, I think this is where us as academic advisors would come in, because we'll be moving with times. We are not necessarily sticking to a particular ideology. Let's say, I'm not saying decolonization is bad, but from what the last speaker has said, I agree with them that we do not have to necessarily do it as within the principle, but within our own practice. Hence, I would want us maybe to concentrate more on the transformation aspect, which is one of our ethical guiding principles.
Thank you, Elizabeth. I will give over to Prof now. Prof Stradom.
Yes. Okay. Right. Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to add to the very insightful comments. It's not. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Right. So I think the very insightful comments that colleagues already has made, I think the fact that the question is raised in the forum is such a positive thing. We have to create spaces where these conversations can happen, and we must be resolute about creating open and inclusive spaces, like colleagues have already mentioned, that we are open and inclusive to think about advising and as of itself as a decolonial practice, that we can look at the different narratives, some of them ideological, some of them not in decoloniality, but also be inclusive of that. And then also bring in the very important transformation part. So I think the very participation and the way people are expressing themselves, at least from what I'm being taught by my colleagues who specialize in decoloniality, it's extremely positive that we create these spaces for these conversations and make it spaces where we can share and think about it, but also share practices that will move it forward in a resolute way.
Thank you, Prof. Stradum. I don't know if there's anyone else who still has any questions or any comments that they would like to also share. You can just raise your hand as we've mentioned, and the technical team will unmute you and you can just share. We still do have time on our side, so the floor is open for a discussion with everyone.
So, Zandi, I think that I've given an overview, right? But I would like our colleagues to engage with the document. And so it's not the last. Those comments would be incorporated into the document. And as I said, it's a living document. It is open to review. And so we will try to pick up on these issues and also the decoloniality issue as well. So if there's nothing else, then thank you, colleagues, and thank you, Dandy, for hosting the session. Thank you very much. And thank you for the lively chat as well.
Thank you, Dr. Razia. I would like to also just say, colleagues, if you would be interested in, giving in some input into the document, again, you can just send an email to the ELETA web mailbox, and we will put you in contact with the people that will facilitate that for you. Right now, colleagues, I'm going to give over to Prof. Stradum as he will lead us into the next session. Thank you.
Good afternoon, colleagues. What a fantastic conversation and day it's been so far. What a wonderful privilege to be here. I usually am a type of person that gets emotional if I see such beautiful growth and development in our wonderful country, supported by all our friends globally that have been with us in the journey since the very beginning. And it's a singular pleasure for me to invite and welcome Dr. Alison Calhoun-Brown from Georgia State University. I want to tell you a little bit more about her. I had the wonderful privilege of talking to her in February this year, and it was so wonderful to connect with each other after the very difficult pandemic times that we went through. So Dr. Alison Calhoun-Brown is Senior Vice President for Student Success and Chief Enrollment Officer at Georgia State University. She directs the university's efforts to increase enrollment, retention, progression, graduation by developing strategies, initiatives, and refining operational processes to support student success. Just reflect on the scope of that responsibilities for a second. Enrollment, retention, progression to graduation. Using data and analytics to establish proactive approaches to reduce educational risk, GSU has become a national model for undergraduate education, and I would like to say, I think, an international model. especially in the student success space. Over the past decade, the university has had one of the fastest growing graduation rates in the USA. They've increased the number of undergraduate degrees they confer by more than 80%, colleagues. And they've eliminated the gaps based on race, ethnicity, and income. What a phenomenal testimony to what a university can do. Dr. Calhoun Brown has implemented new and innovative programming to address issues of effective advising, academic advising, unmet student financial need, curricular progression barriers, and the connection between college and career, and support for at-risk students. Focused on the student life cycle from pre-enrollment to the start of career. Again, look at that focus, colleagues. Pre-enrollment to start of career, where we ourselves need to move towards. The Division of Student Success utilizes a comprehensive metric-based approach that incorporates all aspects of enrollment management, including admissions, student financial management, academic advising, support programs, registration, and co-curricular engagement to advance students' achievement at GSU. Dr. Calhoun Brown graduated with honors from Oberlin College and earned a MA and PhD in political science from Emory University. GSU, and Dr. Calhoun Brown being one of the critical people, has played a very, very important part in the development of the short learning program that the University of the Free State offers on academic advising. Therefore, we see them as our dear colleagues and partners on this journey of establishing this absolutely vital profession in our country. I want to tell you that Alison is joining us despite being on leave already. Just shows you the commitment. So Alison, it's so wonderful to have you with us, and we look forward to listening to you about personalizing success using data and analytics to improve student outcomes. Over to you.
Good morning, everybody. Well, I guess it's morning here in Atlanta. I guess good afternoon, everybody. I'm Alison Calhoun Brown. Francois, thank you for that introduction. I hope you can hear me. Can everyone hear me? Maybe somebody can make sure, let me know, send something in the chat. Oh, all right, okay. Great, it is my pleasure to be with you today. Francois was just saying that sometimes he gets emotional when he sees the kind of development in around advising in South Africa. Well, I get emotional, not even in South Africa, or you know, haven't been really day by day part of the work that you're doing. But it's fantastic to see how much growth and development there's been in academic advising since the last time I had the pleasure of being in South Africa talking about academic advising. It's tremendous to see. I've prepared a presentation today. I'm going to share my presentation, and then I'll come back and be able to talk to you face to face about the topics that we bring up today. So let me see, can you, let's see, can we share the screen? One second, I'm having a little trouble sharing that screen. Sorry, colleagues. A little bit of technical difficulty, but we'll get it back up.
Yeah, Alison.
Yes.
We can see your screen. the PowerPoint presentation. You just need to put it on presentation. Perfect. There we can see
there
it.
we go. Thank you so much. All right, so the title of today's discussion, Personalizing Success Using Data and Analytics to Improve Outcomes. And I'm here in Atlanta. I looked up the 2 flights that I could get to South Africa. Obviously, it's a very long way. I'm really happy that today, with the wonders of technology, I'm here with you at this in this seminar to talk about academic advising. Physically, I'm here at Georgia State University, and as Dr. Stridham explained, Georgia State University is an urban university in the heart of Atlanta. We have about 52,000 students, 37,000 on our downtown Atlanta campus, and we have 5 suburban campuses. There are 250 degree programs across 100 academic areas. One of the things that I want you to know about students at Georgia State University is that they are hardworking and wonderful. We are one of the most diverse universities in the entire country, the United States. We have 70% minority students here. 40% are first generation, 60% are low income, and many don't have enough money when you look, at least on paper, to meet the needs of going to college. This is a very unique population for a research university in the United States. And given the uniqueness of this population, many people would project that Georgia State University would not be a place of an academic turnaround or a place where there would be a lot of academic success. Indeed, if you looked at Georgia State just about a decade ago, we were an underperforming urban university that had the stereotypical achievement gaps based on race and ethnicity, where white students outperformed African-American students and African-American students outperformed Hispanic students and other students here at Georgia State. A little bit more than a decade later, though, Georgia State has increased the number of degrees it awards by 84%, absolute increases from 4,000 degrees to more than 7,000 degrees. And importantly, there are no equity gaps. Now, for 7 years in a row, African-American students, low-income students, which are measured by Pell here in the States, Hispanic students, first-generation students, all graduate at or above the rate of the student body overall. And you can see these percentage changes, which well outpace any change in enrollment for those groups. Georgia State has garnered a lot of national and even international attention, and we like to talk about the things that we do well. We have been designated as best undergraduate teaching and most innovative in the United States, and best learning communities and best experiences. And there's a lot of wonderful things that are going on, a lot of wonderful things in terms of social mobility. Georgia State now is one of the top American universities in terms of social mobility. It's one of the things that we are most proud of, moving students from low income families when they come into the university to at least middle income about 15 years after they graduate. So a lot of wonderful things have taken place at Georgia State over the last decade or so. But what I really want to focus on is how we did it, because I think that there are a lot of parallels between the experience at Georgia State, the kinds of students that we were serving at Georgia State, the kinds of challenges that we were facing at Georgia State, and some of the things that you may be experiencing at your university. And the central question that I would encourage us all to ask as we start this discussion, and the thing that made the most difference at Georgia State, is answering the question, are we the problem? And certainly friends, there are a lot of problems. The quality of primary education, we could put that in the category of a problem. The quality of secondary education, could put that in the category of problem. Funding is always a continual problem. Some of the socioeconomic and demographic backgrounds of the students that we serve can be a real challenge. Motivation and resilience, particularly coming out of the pandemic, also a problem. But none of that means, and all those are very legitimate problems, but none of those things mean that an institution as strong as a university is incapable of taking on the challenges that our students face, and doesn't mean that the university itself sometimes doesn't create these problems. Because when we took a real hard look at equity gaps, when we were starting this work, there were several principles that seem to identify themselves that we've really used to continue to guide our work, even in academic advising. The first principle is that there are policies and practices that can become real barriers to student success. I heard someone say it just in the last session, that there are often things that are implicitly understood that are not explicitly explained. And these policies and practices that sometimes are implicit can create real challenges for first-generation students, for underrepresented or underserved students, for low-income students. Those barriers have a disproportionately negative impact on these kinds of students, and really are part of what drive the equity gaps, even from an institutional perspective. You know, there's a lot of things in society that might structure the equity gaps, but the institutions that we're a part of, unfortunately, sometimes through the educational process, can actually contribute to them. There's a lot of gap between what we represent, and this is a picture of, one of Georgia State's admission web pages, where everyone is happy at Georgia State, everyone is graduating at Georgia State. This is what we are encouraging people to come to. We do this everywhere. The University of the Free State, inspiring excellence, transforming lives through quality, impact, and care. That's what we represent. That's what we suggest that students are going to experience. At the Northwest University, we're encouraging students to follow their heart and come to our institution to make their dreams come true. It all starts here. And students buy into that. This is a picture of one of the students coming to Georgia State with her parents. Students come with their hopes and with their dreams. They come investing time, investing resources, sometimes traveling long distances. They come looking for a robust experience. They come looking for an educational environment that's going to help them grow. But you and I know in reality, sometimes there's a gap between what we say we're going to provide for them and what we actually provide for them. And we think about academic advising and the larger educational process often as a system of inputs and outputs. But each of the students in this picture is an individual, right? With very different ways or very different backgrounds and very different variables that impact their success. And what we really want to do is capture their individual experiences, capture their goals, capture their challenges in a way that will allow each of these individuals to be more successful to actually graduate in a timely manner. What we really need is a strategy for every student. And in South Africa, I looked up the enrollments. He'll tell me if I'm wrong. There's about 1 million students who are in tertiary education, up in college somewhere. And too often, we have a really great strategy for the upper end of the distribution. Students who might, of themselves, either have the resources, personal resources, to negotiate the institution successfully, or have the wherewithal to seek out all the information that they need, right? We have a good strategy sometimes for those students. And sometimes we have policies that drive in struggling students. But we need a strategy for every student in the distribution. And by the way, hope is not a strategy. Sometimes, we can get magical in our thinking, that the students will be able to figure it out, or if we just give them a little bit of information, a little bit of direction, that they will get to graduation, we will be able to improve outcomes. But we've got to do more than just hope that happens. And we've got to do more than just set up academic advising offices. And I know that that is what Alexa is all about, doing more. But what is the standard of care that takes place at our institution? What will every student be provided? What goes into every advising appointment? Or what is the content, whether it's developmental content or academic content or career content? What are the standards that we're setting up so that every student receives what they need in a timely manner? Are we tracking the outcomes in a way that is going to allow us to identify where strategically we can best intervene in a proactive and not a reactive manner? And make sure that every advisor receives the same information to make these connections for our students in a systematic way. We've seen at Georgia State that data is the thing. When you can do data-informed advising, that supports the strategy, because it can be overwhelming when you're thinking about individual students, all the variables that impact their readiness for college and their ability to succeed in college, all the different curricula that exist, all the different institutional factors that exist. It can be overwhelming to think about, well, how can I most effectively intervene? And it's really the data that informs the practice of advising, or at least it should inform the practice of advising. We want to understand from the data, where is our best opportunity to make the biggest difference? And then do that proactively before a student gets in trouble, proactively engaging the student's journey through the institution. That's what gives us an opportunity to really personalize success, because we've set up, the sort of what would be the ideal way to move through the institution. And then we evaluate with the data where the pain points are that undermine a student's ability to do that. So let me give you an example from Georgia State. We had more than almost 6,000 students when we first started doing this work drop out of our university, right? That meant they started their educational journey, but they didn't finish it, right? In 1 year, we lose 5,760 students. And so the way that we went about trying to understand why we were losing students, why they were leaving the institution, was to engage a huge data project, which we call GPS advising, where we used 10 years of Georgia State data, more than 2.5 million grades, to come up with these analytics-based alerts. These were things that students did academically to take them off the right path. And we track 30,000 students every day for these kinds of behaviors. And so what kinds of things are we tracking? Well, we've laid out an academic path for every student, right? That has the courses that they need to take, each semester they need to take them, and the grades that they should earn in every one of those classes to be successful, trying to lay out milestones and other kinds of markers of academic success. The students earn or meet these markers, they go on to graduate at a really great rate. But if they don't meet these markers, they don't succeed nearly as well. And so if you look at that middle chart on this slide for political science majors, I used to be a political science faculty member. If a student gets an A or a B in their first political science class, they go on to graduate at from Georgia State at a really good rate for us, about 75%. But if they get a C in that first class, their success rates plummet to only about 25%. Historically, as an institution, we didn't do anything to reach out to students who got that average grade, when the data suggests that it's critically important to reach out to a student who is going off sort of the established good path by getting a very average grade in that first introductory course. Today, an advisor would reach out to the student who got that kind of grade. Last year at Georgia State, based on those markers and the milestones, we had more than 106,000 individual advising appointments to try to make sure that those students got back on the right track. Right? And does it make a difference? Makes a huge difference. If you look at sort of retention at Georgia State, right? Every 1 point increase, 1 percentage point increase in student retention translates to more than $3 million a year for the institution. And I tried to do a conversion to Rand just to give you a sense that this is a lot of money if we're able to hold on to just one more student. It also translates a lot of money to students who are paying into the institution. So whether that subsidy is coming from the state or whether the students are actually making the investment themselves, it makes a huge difference if we're able to stop students from stopping out and get them back on the right path through those marker-based interventions in a timely manner. It actually confounds a lot of expectations, because when we started to do this work, particularly with prerequisites and the other markers, those 800 markers that we were able to identify, what we've seen is that even in what people perceive to be challenging majors, like STEM, we've seen huge increases in good outcomes. The number of African American students who are receiving STEM degrees up almost 160%. Black males up more than 200%. Hispanics, another underrepresented groups here in the United States, up 400%. The enrollment change for these groups is much, much smaller. So thinking strategically about when to intervene and using the data to identify those opportunities creates a real positive environment for students to strive to achieve and to thrive, because we're able to backfill the information that they need to be successful. Now, people sometimes say, well, we don't have, that kind of system. I know that there are sometimes efforts to build those systems. Institutions have differing data capacities, but there are lots of low cost ways that can even be managed on a spreadsheet that will yield a lot of the same data-based or data-informed opportunities to reach out in academic advisement. What you want to know is, what are the challenges? Where are the pain points for our students? And then design an intervention that can address those. So if you are dealing with a lot of online courses, and we're all dealing with a lot of online courses in the post-pandemic era, do you have a learning management system, or where those online classes are held? Is there a way to monitor when students are logging in, how often they're logging in? If you start to see a gap in how often they log in or when they log in, instead of waiting for the term to go by, at Georgia State, we actually get reports of that, and our academic advisors reach out if a student doesn't log in within a week or 10 days, or if their pattern of login changes. If a student stops attending a class or withdraws from a class, particularly a class that they need, an academic advisor will reach out. We have lots of partnerships with our faculty to generate alerts where they can communicate that there's a concern about a student early in the semester. Either the student, it may be doing poor academic work or not attending regularly. The student may have come to the faculty member with, a challenge that they're food insecure or they're housing insecure. An academic advisor can at least help route that information to the proper office at the university to save the student. Failure to meet milestones, we talked about that, whether those are prerequisite courses or other milestones in the academic program. Having an advisor look into that. How long is it taking your students to complete their degree? Are there pain points that an academic advisor is able to identify, and then to design an intervention to help the student get over those pain points? A lot of people are gathering student engagement information through surveys, through data on campus. There's lots of different ways to look at where students are going and how often they're engaging. That can be some very useful data as well. Toxic course combinations. Do you see opportunities where students are taking two courses together, and whenever they take those two courses together, they really have a hard time? Again, that may be another opportunity to design a timely intervention from academic advisement. So lots of opportunity for low-cost, data-based alerts. It's wonderful to have a data analytics system, and if your institution either has one or has some researchers there who can give you insight through the data, that's great. But sometimes just talking to other advisors and tracking some very basic things can also make a huge difference. Another example that we saw at Georgia State in the data several years ago is that only about 8% of students, our first-year students, were going to career services at all. We found when we talked to students that many of them were really overwhelmed when it came to career choices. They didn't know what they wanted to do. They didn't know, and even if they did know what they wanted to do, they didn't know the real career options that were available to them or how to do it. And so one of the things that we did is to start to organize all of our academic programs into what we call meta majors. Now, the students are still pursuing their more specific academic programs, but when we organized around meta majors, we were able from the very first semester to start to push information to broad categories of students about career options that may be available to them. And even more importantly, the kinds of skills that they may need for the jobs that they want. Students, in today's world, career paths are no longer linear. And so you may be going to school to be an accountant, but you also, it's really important for students to understand that there are lots of other opportunities for them if they're going to be, studying to be an accountant. And even more importantly, that the skills that they're going to develop in college while they're studying one thing can be transferable to many things. And so our academic advisors really started talking to our students, not only about sort of their academic path, but about the critical skills that they're learning in college and how those skills apply to the career path that they're interested in. And you can have wonderful developmental conversations with students when you're not necessarily just talking about the mechanics of a very linear career path, but more importantly sometimes about the kinds of skills that undergird all of education and certainly the career path that they're interested in. We've also been able to combine this with some really great data, again, from the very first semester for our students to understand where our graduates go. And this is actually Atlanta-based data. We partnered with a company called Stepping Blocks, and it's wonderful to have these kinds of partnerships with companies where you could actually pull the data. But even more importantly than where our graduates go and the salaries that they make, we're also able to share career path information with them that, students don't always start off at the top of their career path, but there really is a whole series of jobs and internships and other experiences that they have that go into, a career destination that may be 5, 10, 15, 20 years in the future. We are trying to help our students, the advisors are trying to help students understand that they need to be future flexible. And again, we have all kinds of data. You can look at this, students may want to be a chief executive officer there on the right-hand side of your slide. What this data shows is that, hey, there are lots of people who want to be chief executive officers. Not all of them major in business, that there's flexibility in outcomes. And the way that we're able to tie all this together is that we have now an e-portfolio that we are able to monitor how students are documenting the career relevance of what they're learning in college, in their classes, and how they're thinking about their jobs based on the academic background that they're getting from college. In having our advisors engage this has led to a 400% increase in the number of first-year students who visit career services centers. So from the very beginning, students are thinking about the connection between college to career, and advisors are being able to integrate not just the hardcore academic information, but career advice, particularly around skills that allow that information that they're learning in college to be transferable not only to direct career paths, but to entrepreneurial career paths and to lots of other things that students may be interested in doing. I mean, advising, I think the data and our own experience demonstrates that advising is very key to student success. right? It interacts with all these kinds of things that students are looking for. They're looking for coaching and advice and direction and motivation and support, lots and lots of things. Advising is well placed to accomplish those goals. I would argue that advising is the foundation of student success. But it's not just any kind of friendly advising that is the most effective way to go about doing it. We want to make a guided pathway for the students, identify what is the optimal way to go through our institution, and then track progress on the path. And where students are not making great progress on the path, design a timely intervention. As I say here, a high quality targeted intervention that's personal. No more dear student emails or dear student phone calls or dear student letters, right? We should have in the data enables us to identify the individual experience. That's what's so powerful about data, because in some ways you think, wow, we're aggregating all this information. And we are aggregating all this information, but we're aggregating this information in a way that allows our outreach to be more personal, because we understand where an individual student may be departing from what would be the best practice or what would be the norm for students, at least to optimally move through our university. We want it to be a proactive outreach, which is another reason why we want to use data, because we can understand from past experience where students get tripped up and start to reach out to them before that happens. We don't want to wait. We don't want to have to be reactive. We don't want it to be too late. And we want also to be able, through this kind of outreach, to integrate other university resources. And no, academic advisors can't do everything. And there are lots of problems that academic advisors cannot solve. But a lot of times we can build a bridge to other offices, other resources at the university that can help students negotiate things that may be challenging their academic success. The advantages to this data-enabled approach is, number one, it's evidence-based, right? It is really clear. That's what I mean by data being strategy. It really becomes clear when we evaluate the data where our best opportunities are. We want our outreach to be systematic, right? We want to be able to touch every student who needs to be touched, not just the good students, not just the struggling students, but every student when they need it. And it needs to be scalable. It can't just be the students who come in for advising, or the students who, some small group of students who get lots of support. When Georgia State, we have 52,000 students. They all need support, right? And data enables us to watch over them all in an even-handed way and make sure that everybody is able to get the interventions that they need when they need it to make progress. This is very transferable, the database strategy. It's supportive of faculty, because faculty are not the only ones talking to the student, interacting with the student, or even identifying the challenges of the student. We ought to be able to identify those in the data and then back up the faculty as they identify challenges in real time in the classroom. And that there's a very positive return on investment for doing this. And it can be very low cost. It doesn't have to be done with a very expensive system. It can be done in a way, an engaged way, that can make a tremendous difference for students. And students are what's at the center. We want to deliver the kinds of things that we offer in the brochure for every student, and ultimately get them to the graduation outcomes, which are really the reason why they start to engage with us in any event. All right, so I'm going to stop sharing my screen and answer any questions that may have come up?
Fantastic, Alison. I hope you have seen all the hearts and the hand clapping gestures during the presentation. What a fantastic conversation you've started. So colleagues, I'm going to ask for some questions. I see a hand. Let me just, oh, sorry, don't worry. There wasn't a question. Is there another one going up? And Annette keeps putting up her hand. She's now panicking.
Elizabeth
Alison,
had a hand, Prof.
Say again?
Sorry, I say Elizabeth had a hand.
Okay, Elizabeth, over to you.
Oh, sorry, it was not a hand. I was actually wanted to clap.
Okay,
Thank you
great.
so much.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Riashna, over to you.
Alison, Riashna Salim, University of Town, if you remember.
I do. Hi.
Thank you so much for this amazing presentation. And, every time I hear some version of this presentation, I was inspired by some different aspect of it. And I guess my question, it's actually largely a question to you from your perspective as being this person responsible in a sense for student success badge at the institution. What would be your best advice in terms of how do we take this ground? Okay, those of us, in a sense, this is the choir, right? You're preaching to the choir of people who want to do this kind of work. How do we take that to management to get a real commitment, especially, at the moment, the big thing is, well, we just don't have the money. We don't have the money for more resources. We don't have the money for new strategies. And institutions that are quite scared of innovation. I think at the moment, everyone is all about managing risk rather than taking risk. And I would be very interested in hearing your thoughts on that.
Riashna, it's great to see you again. I remember meeting you as we had the great pleasure. One of the strategies that we have used at Georgia State is we started with small pilots, but we're able to show the impact, financial impact of retaining more students or graduating more students or whatever it was that we were looking at, and which is one of the reasons why I tried to include that ROI screen, right? The return on investment.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're right, people can be very, very risk averse.
Yeah.
But if we're able to help them understand that this is actually not a risky thing, that this is actually something, that will benefit it'll benefit the student, but it will also benefit the institution.
Mm-hmm.
We've been able to make that case in a way that we've been able to gather more resources over time. It is really challenging. You're right. How can we do this in a resource constrained environment? Start with a small enough pilot that you can demonstrate that, look, we were able to increase these student outcomes by 10%, right? Or 15%. Yeah. Just imagine, and that was just in this pilot of 200, 400, a relatively limited number of students. Imagine if we were able to really scale this and make the case, to those who are not in the choir yet, make the case that, you can come sing with us because we can really make some beautiful music together, right? Because they may not be as focused on student success. They may care about student success, but they're often also focused on the very bottom line. And so, I try not to just talk student success. Some people can be motivated by the heartstrings, by, the value of education. Some people are really motivated by the value of the dollar. And so, or the rand. And so trying to translate that and talk in a way that they can identify that value is really important. That, I often say that student success doesn't really cost, it pays. And it really does pay over time. I think, Riyashna, you were frozen, so I hope everyone can still hear me.
We can hear you. Thank you so much for that. I just think there's maybe a momentary connection problem down to the Cape, Alison. I just want to reiterate that and link it to our current context. I think there might be risk aversion because people are not thinking about, they're worried about decreasing resources instead of thinking about if we do this, we actually use our existing resources better. So I think even though many South African universities and the South African system is under a lot of resource constraints, we do know that there isn't enough efficiencies, and advising could offer a way of us making even better use of what we get. So I just wanted to emphasize that point and link up to the crucial point that's being made. Thank you to the colleagues making comments about how important personalizing the experience with data for students is. Thank you for that. Let's go over to Zanele with the next question. Zanele? Zanele, let's try again. There we go.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm sorry I'm not going to show my picture. I look horrendous. I've got a terrible flu. Listen, thank you so much for the good presentation. I don't know if my question is quite in line with what you presented, but I'm just going to throw it out there either way. So one of the things, okay, I'm based in the Kwankwa campus. I'm an advisor at the Kwankwa campus. So what I've seen when I'm capturing the data of the students that I see is that predominantly it's women, that come to utilize our services, whereas sometimes faculties would give us lists of students that are not performing well so that we are able to assist them. And we do see that, sometimes it's mainly men or people who identify as men that are there. We do send them emails, to come to see, to come to our office. However, it's such a small percentage that really comes to see us. I don't know whether it's a masculinity thing or what. I don't know. Maybe you can just advise us on that, on maybe like which approach can we use, to, for lack of a better word, to motivate them or entice them to come to academic advising. Thank you.
Yeah, that's a tricky problem because you reach out and they don't always come. We want to think about some of the strategies that we have utilized is we want them to come to us, but often also there can be opportunities to go to them. Now, you can't necessarily do academic advising in the place where the students are having lunch, but you can go and have someone there to set up appointments with students as they come in. We've done this at Georgia State in housing. We've done it in the dining halls. We've done it in the main, classroom building, trying to sort of lower the barriers to, to entry. We have also done some things online, and I imagine that you are also, doing kind of online advising. But sometimes the very first time a student wants to come for advisement, being able to offer it in a virtual modality can be very, very helpful as well. We are not above giving away, giving food, having prizes, whatever we can do to drive students in. We had a bring a buddy kind of thing. I mean, there may be a way that, you're able to encourage students to whatever can get them in the door. We've done all those kinds of things. And when we get them in the door, they recognize the greater value. And so, it's not just a matter of, send an email, see if they'll come. One of the things that you can do is actually go to where students are. You tell them that you're going to be there, and then just sort of have the advisors interact with the students. That creates an environment that's a little bit less formal and more comfortable. And we've seen students engage more when we've done that. But it is a challenge. Men tend to be a little bit less. We've seen some of that, not perhaps to the same degree as you, but yeah, that can be a tough population to really support holistically.
Thank you very much. Next, Evodia.
Thank you very much, Prof. Good afternoon, Alison. So I work within the space of tutoring as well as employability. And in our program, we've really started creating, or we almost getting to a point where we can say we are maturing in terms of our practices of collecting data and actioning that data to inform certain institutional practices. However, over the years, I think the more, obviously, you don't want to exist in that space in isolation. You want to invite more and more people, including the students and the different participants in this process. I think one of the, maybe I'm creating context and I'll get to my question now. One of the things that we started experiencing is, the more we work our data, the more you find themes and characteristics of who the student is, and therefore you start designing more personalized experiences for the students. I think what has happened to us in the latter years is that, COVID came to disrupt some of the data collection practices we used to hold, because it's easier to collect via paper or if you're in the classroom versus relying on electronic data collection measures where it's sort of left to the individual. Now, the part of my question is, as the cohorts change, as the staff change, as the leadership changes, how does one sort of re-educate your community around the value of that data collection process? Because I think it's easy to collect the data, but understanding the value of that data, how you collect it, but also how you action it is a whole different experience. So my question is, how did Georgia State get to a point where, as people move in and out of the system, you continue creating and cultivating this culture of the importance of data, but not just stopping there, utilizing this data to effect change? That's a mouthful.
Yeah, it is a mouthful, because it really speaks to how do you institutionalize a culture, because sometimes this can be, you have people, and as people change, as you just mentioned, Devotia, as people change, as the institution changes, as sort of society changes coming out of COVID, how do you keep moving forward with the work? And one of the things that we have worked hard to do is to really start to institutionalize our practices. So what I mean by that is there's a calendar of when we do things. There's reports that are expected at particular times, right? So that, this report should be delivered to this person. This report should be delivered to this person. And then we have scheduled meetings to engage those reports. It's really hard for something to completely sort of fall off the radar screen, or, that you have the data and you can get the data, but you have to have meetings to talk about how we're going to engage the data so that it remains actionable and that it remains fresh. And so, you know, we try to set those up with key leaders, because when you set it up with key leaders, it becomes a challenge just to, you know, not do it over time. And so I would encourage you, it sounds like you already have some maturity around data, certainly around receiving the data and even working with the data. But if you can set up meetings with key leaders to review the data, it can help keep everything on track moving forward, even while personalities and people change. So it's not, you know, it's not just meeting with an individual, but meeting with a role. So I have a whole series of meetings where I review data and talk about what we're going to do with it, whether we need different kind of data, whether what we're seeing in the data has changed. All of that helps to institutionalize the kinds of changes that are sometimes, at least at first, really just driven by individuals.
Right. Last question for the day. Elizabeth, you have the last question.
Thank you, Prof. Thank you, Alison, for, that was really a brilliant presentation. And I understood the data aspect of it. I understood also the issue of coming out with or coming up with relevant interventions and thinking strategically where to intervene. Where to intervene, maybe it can even come from the data that we have, but the how aspect is really a challenge. As my colleagues have alluded to, in terms of resources, not only that, the challenge that we have is this causal relationship. At what stage are advisors having been noticed to have made contribution to student success? And in this case, what is success? Because for me, if a student was not attending lectures and I have a one-on-one session with them and they are now attending lectures, that's success. But from a bigger picture, in terms of the institution itself, they look at the throughput, they look at the end product. So it becomes very difficult for academic advisors to say students have passed because they've come to us. At the same time, it also becomes a challenge to say students failed because academic advisors were not doing their work. So where do we draw the line? What do we do with such? For me, that's really a big problem.
Yeah, I mean, trying to see, and thank you for your question, Elizabeth. It is a challenge because advisors, are influencing, and it's really a part of a huge output of the institution. But there's no doubt that those little steps, getting the students to go to lecture, is what leads to the kind of throughput. And so, what you want to do is document the difference that we're making, because it does show up in the aggregate. If you can make sure that you are documenting, and maybe you are already doing this, the kinds of interventions, the kind of outreach, the kind of contact that you are having with students. I hope you can still hear me. Yeah, okay, my screen, the kind of outreach that you are an impact that you're having with students, it does show up. It's not, no individual advisor is going to be able to move the aggregate student outcomes. But what can move aggregate student outcomes is an advisement strategy. And so, that's, I guess, one of the things that I would really encourage us all as academic advisors to think about is literally, what is our strategy? Because, it's not, the strategy is not, well, we're just going to help individual students. And I know that this is not what you're doing, but help individual students go to class. We want to develop in the aggregate a way that we are moving all of our students through the institution. And that's the thing that advisors want to be able to talk about, is the strategy. Not that we helped an individual student, but that we developed a strategy to take first-year students to the second year, or to take students who have traditionally struggled to the point of graduation, and then to document that we actually did that. That's not what we talk about a lot. We talk about, at least in my experience, we talk about the students that we saw, or the students that we, the students that we helped, and that's good. But that's very different than really being able to articulate to the institution at the aggregate, what is our strategy to increase the overall outcomes that the institution wants to see. We want to be able to articulate that there's a strategy that we're going to engage. We're going to help individual students while we're doing the strategy, but that there's a strategy that advisors are going to engage that's going to produce a different institutional outcome that can actually be tracked back to the work that advisors.
Alison, thank you so very much. I am very glad that you started your presentation with a flight that you're definitely going to make if I have anything to do with it. And I'm sure this community would love to have you in South Africa again. Thank you for the phenomenal commitment to your inspiring work that you and the team keep leading the way in this work. Thank you for making time even during your leave to join us. It really has been phenomenal. And I hope that you can now take it easy for the rest of the day and actually start to relax. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for inviting me, for allowing me to become a part and to participate. I really appreciate it. I want you to be encouraged in your work. You're making a tremendous difference for the students that you serve and for the world. I don't think that that's hyperbole.
Thank you.
Thank you, Francois. Have a wonderful day, everybody. We appreciate you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Okay, colleagues, I think that was a fitting end to a spectacular day. I have the wonderful privilege of just doing some thank yous. I want to start with all of you as participants. One could see through the chats, through the reactions, how you were engaging. And it is so wonderful to see a community that is so energized and enthusiastic about their work. Then to all our speakers, national and international, Dr. Ling, Dr. Allison, our national speakers, our colleagues that have inspired and shared how they do their work. From a support perspective, our Roystool colleagues, Creative Kilowatt for Sound, Gavin Kutzer from ICT Services. I think we've learned some valuable lessons regarding routing people in teams to rooms. And so there'll definitely be some improvements on that front. And then finally to the Iletsa team, starting with Zandi. Zandi, thank you for keeping things together and running smoothly. Razia, for the very creative contributions of Wits and yourself and the leadership you're showing. Nanette, for also being there for the team, helping with coordination on the day. And then for Gugu coming in, even though she's at the back end of her maternity leave, she will be joining us soon in July again. Colleagues, if this is the kind of interaction we can see, I don't think advising just has a future. I think it has an incredibly bright future in South Africa. Congratulations from me personally, from the whole team, for all your hard work and everything you do for students every single day. And thank you for being trailblazers. I hope you all have a very pleasant day. Thank you very much.